What if Ned Stark sent Jon Snow to foster with the Tyrells at Highgarden? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. The Great Hall of Winterfell stands quiet in the early morning light, its ancient stones holding the chill of another northern winter. Ned Stark sits alone at the high table, a cup of ale growing warm in his hands. 2 years have passed since Robert's rebellion ended at the Trident, yet the memories of the Tower of Joy still haunt his dreams. The dying words of his sister Lyanna echo in his mind like a prayer he cannot forget. "Promise me, Ned." He looks toward the hearth, where young Jon Snow sleeps in a basket near the warmth. The boy is barely 2 years old, dark-haired and solemn, even in sleep. Every time Ned sees the child, he remembers the price of Robert's crown, the price of keeping promises to the dead. The sound of horses in the courtyard breaks his thoughts. Maester Luwin enters the hall, his chain clinking softly as he moves. "My lord," Luwin says, "Lord Mace Tyrell has arrived with a large party. He requests an audience." Ned frowns. The Tyrells bent the knee after the Field of Fire, but their loyalty to the new king remains uncertain. Mace Tyrell fought for the Mad King until the very end. "What brings the Lord of Highgarden so far north? How large a party?" Ned asks. 40 riders, my lord, and his mother, Lady Olenna." The Queen of Thorns herself. Ned sets down his cup and rises from his chair. Whatever brings the Tyrells to Winterfell, it is no casual visit. Have them brought to the hall and wake Catelyn. Within the hour, the great hall fills with the sound of southern voices. Mace Tyrell enters with his customary pomp, his doublet adorned with golden roses. Behind him walks his mother, a sharp-eyed woman whose reputation for cunning precedes her. The Lady Olenna Tyrell surveys Winterfell's austere grandeur with the calculating gaze of a player in the Game of Thrones. "Lord Stark," Mace declares, his voice booming across the hall, "the pleasure of your hospitality honors House Tyrell." Ned inclines his head. "Lord Mace, Lady Olenna, Winterfell welcomes you." The formal courtesies pass quickly. Mace speaks of his journey north, of King Robert's consolidation of power, of trade between the Reach and the North. Yet Ned notices how Olenna's eyes wander to where Jon sleeps near the hearth. The old woman's gaze lingers on the child with something approaching recognition. Catelyn appears at Ned's side, having dressed hastily for the unexpected guests. She curtsies to their visitors but says nothing. The sight of Jon always brings a tightness to her features, a reminder of her husband's supposed betrayal. "My lord," Mace continues, "I come with more than pleasantries. House Tyrell seeks to strengthen ties with the great houses of the realm. The rebellion showed us the cost of division." "What do you propose?" Ned asks carefully. Olenna steps forward, her cane tapping against the stone floor. "We propose an exchange that benefits both our houses. Your bastard son grows strong, I see." The words hang in the air like a blade. Ned's hand moves instinctively toward his sword hilt, but Olenna raises a weathered hand. "Peace, Lord Stark. I mean no offense. The boy has good bones, strong Stark features." Her eyes narrow slightly. Though something of the South in him as well. Catelyn stiffens beside Ned. The suggestion that Jon might not be entirely northern carries dangerous implications. Mace clears his throat. "My mother speaks truly. The boy shows promise. We would be honored to foster him at Highgarden when he comes of age." The offer strikes Ned like a thunderbolt. Foster Jon with the Tyrells? The idea seems absurd at first, then slowly begins to make sense. A bastard raised in the north will always bear that stigma, but a bastard fostered by a great house, trained in the ways of knighthood and courtly politics, might rise far higher. "He is very young," Ned says slowly. "All the better," Olenna replies. Young minds adapt quickly. We could begin his education in the ways of the South, teach him letters, swordplay, the courtesies. By the time he reaches his majority, he would be a credit to both our houses. Ned looks at Jon, still sleeping peacefully. The boy's dark hair catches the firelight, and for a moment Ned sees not his sister's son, but the promise she extracted from him at the Tower of Joy. Perhaps this is the answer to his prayers. Jon would be safer far from Robert's court, far from those who might remember Rhaegar Targaryen's dark hair and violet eyes. "What would you ask in return?" Ned inquires. "Friendship," Mace says simply. "Alliance when the realm has need. The North and the Reach have no cause for enmity." But Olenna's smile suggests deeper motivations. The boy would remain yours, of course, but he would learn our ways, serve our house with honor. Such fosterings have built lasting bonds between great families. Catelyn touches Ned's arm gently. When he looks at her, he sees something unexpected in her eyes. Not the usual pain that Jon's presence brings, but something approaching hope. "It would give him opportunities," she says quietly. "Chances he would never have here." The truth of her words strikes home. As Ned's bastard, Jon will always be an outsider in the North. But as a ward of House Tyrell, trained in the graces of the South, he might become something more. A knight, perhaps, or even a lord in his own right. "When would you take him?" Ned asks. "When he turns 3, Mace replies. "Old enough to travel, young enough to adapt. We would treat him as our own blood." Ned studies the Tyrell party carefully. Behind their courtly manner, he senses genuine intent. They see value in Jon beyond his bastard status. Perhaps they recognize something in the boy that even Ned has missed. For a long moment, the hall remains silent, except for the crackling of the fire. Jon stirs in his basket, dark eyes opening to gaze solemnly at the assembled lords. The child shows no fear of the strangers, only quiet curiosity. Olenna approaches the basket and looks down at Jon with frank assessment. "Yes," she murmurs. "This one will do very well indeed." The certainty in her voice convinces Ned more than any argument could. The Queen of Thorns sees potential where others see only a bastard. If Jon is to rise above his birth, he needs more than northern honor. He needs southern cunning. "Very well," Ned says at last. "When Jon reaches his 3rd year, he may travel south to Highgarden, but I would visit him often." "Of course," Mace agrees quickly. "The bonds between father and son must not be broken." Olenna's smile grows wider. "You will find, Lord Stark, that roses bloom most beautifully when tended with care. Your son will lack for nothing at Highgarden." As the negotiations continue, Ned feels the weight of destiny settling around them. This moment will change Jon's life forever, setting him on a path far different from the one awaiting him in the North. Whether that path leads to glory or ruin, only time will tell. But as he watches Jon sleep peacefully beside the fire, Ned knows he has made the right choice. The promise he made to Lyanna was to protect her son. Sometimes protection means letting go. The offer of roses has been made and accepted. In 2 years' time, Jon Snow will leave the cold stones of Winterfell for the warm gardens of Highgarden. The bastard of the North will become a ward of the South, and the realm will never be quite the same. With that decision made, the future begins to take a very different shape indeed. The morning sun breaks cold over Winterfell's walls as Jon Snow stands in the courtyard, his small hands clutching a wooden sword. 3 years have passed since his birth, and today marks the beginning of a journey that will change everything. The boy's dark hair catches the northern light as he looks up at the towering walls that have sheltered him since birth. Ned Stark kneels beside his son, placing a gentle hand on the child's shoulder. Remember what I have taught you, Jon. Honor guides a man's steps, whether in the north or the south. Jon nods solemnly, his grey eyes serious beyond his years. Yes, father. The word strikes Ned like a blade to the heart. Soon this boy will call another man father, learn different lessons, speak with a different tongue. But this is the price of keeping promises to the dead. Catelyn watches from the steps of the great hall, young Robb balanced on her hip. The sight of Jon's departure brings no joy to her features, but neither does it bring the usual pain. Perhaps distance will heal wounds that time has not. The Tyrell party assembles in the yard with southern pageantry. Banners of gold and green snap in the crisp morning wind, and their horses stamp impatiently on the frozen ground. Mace Tyrell cuts an impressive figure in his travelling cloak, while Lady Olenna sits comfortably in a cushioned wheelhouse. "Come, boy," Olenna calls from her carriage. "Winterfell's stones have seen enough of your tears." Jon has shed no tears, but he approaches the wheelhouse with careful steps. The Queen of Thorns studies him with sharp eyes, noting how straight he holds his shoulders despite his youth. "You will ride with me today," she declares. "Southern roads require southern wisdom." Ned lifts Jon into the wheelhouse, their final embrace lasting longer than protocol demands. "Be strong, my son. The roses of Highgarden will teach you much, but never forget the wolves of Winterfell." "I won't forget," Jon promises, though his voice wavers slightly. The journey south begins with the creaking of wagon wheels and the thunder of hooves on stone. Jon presses his face to the wheelhouse window, watching Winterfell grow smaller until it disappears beyond the rolling hills. The familiar grey walls fade like a dream, replaced by endless leagues of unfamiliar countryside. "Your first lesson begins now," Olenna says, settling back against her cushions. "Watch how the land changes as we travel. The north breeds one kind of man, the south another. You must learn to be both." For days they ride through landscapes that grow warmer and greener with each passing mile. Jon marvels at forests thick with unfamiliar trees, rivers that run swift and clear without ice, and fields that stretch beyond the horizon. The wheelhouse proves comfortable despite the rough roads, its interior adorned with silk cushions and silver fixtures. Olenna speaks little during the journey, but Jon feels her watching him constantly. When they stop at inns, she observes how he greets the servants, how he holds his cup, how he listens to the conversations of grown men. Nothing escapes her notice. "You have good manners for a northern boy," she comments one evening as they dine at a roadside tavern. "Someone has taught you courtesy." "My father says honor demands respect for all people," Jon replies carefully. "Honor." Olenna tastes the word like wine. A fine thing, but it must be tempered with wisdom. You will learn the difference at Highgarden. The days pass in a blur of changing scenery and new experiences. Jon sees his first merchant caravan, loaded with goods from Essos. He watches knights practice their sword work in inn yards, their movements graceful and deadly. Each sight adds to his growing understanding of the world beyond Winterfell's walls. When they reach the Reach, the transformation becomes complete. Gone are the stern grey stones and bare hillsides of the north. In their place rise golden fields of grain, vineyards heavy with fruit, and meadows bright with wildflowers. The very air smells different here, warm and sweet with growing things. "Behold," Olenna says, as their destination comes into view. Highgarden. The castle rises from the green hills like something from a singer's tale. White stone towers gleam in the afternoon sun, their walls covered with climbing roses that bloom in shades of red, white, and gold. Gardens spread in all directions, laid out in perfect patterns that please the eye. Fountains sparkle between carefully tended hedges, and peacocks strut across manicured lawns. Jon stares in wonder at this vision of southern beauty. Compared to Winterfell's stark grandeur, Highgarden seems like a palace from another world. Everything speaks of abundance, prosperity, and careful cultivation. "Welcome to your new home," Olenna says with satisfaction. The wheelhouse rolls through gates carved with roses and into a courtyard paved with coloured stones. Servants in green and gold livery rush to attend them, their movements precise and graceful. Jon has never seen such organisation, such attention to detail. Mace Tyrell stands waiting at the castle's main entrance, flanked by his children. Jon recognises them from descriptions given during the journey. Willers, the eldest at 9, already showing signs of the man he will become. Garlan, 7 years old and sturdy as a young oak. Loras, 4 years old with golden hair that catches the light. And Margaery, Jon's age exactly, with brown curls and bright green eyes. "Jon Snow," Mace declares formally. "House Tyrell welcomes you to Highgarden." Jon climbs down from the wheelhouse and approaches his new family. The moment feels momentous, as if his life divides here between what was and what will be. Willis steps forward first, offering his hand with solemn courtesy. "I am Willis Tyrell. You will be my brother here." Garlan follows, grinning broadly. "And I am Garlan. Can you use that sword, or is it just for show?" Loras bounces on his feet with excitement. "I have a wooden sword too. We can practice together." But it is Margaery who captures Jon's attention. She curtsies perfectly, her movements already showing the grace that will make her famous. "I am Margaery Tyrell. We shall be great friends." Jon bows in return, remembering his lessons in courtesy. "I am Jon Snow. I am honoured to be your guest." Olenna approves with a sharp nod. "Good. He has manners. Now let us see what else he can learn." The interior of Highgarden proves even more magnificent than its exterior. Tapestries in brilliant colours hang from the walls, depicting scenes of chivalry and romance. Marble floors gleam beneath elegant furniture crafted by master artisans. Windows of coloured glass cast rainbow patterns across polished surfaces. Jon's chambers occupy a tower overlooking the main garden. The room contains a proper bed with silk hangings, a writing desk by the window, and chests for clothing. Compared to his simple quarters at Winterfell, it feels like luxury beyond imagination. "Sir Garth Hightower will serve as your guardian and trainer," Mace explains, as they settle Jon into his new home. He is a knight of great renown, veteran of the War of the Nine-Penny Kings. Sir Garth proves to be a weathered man with silver hair and keen blue eyes. His bearing speaks of decades spent in service to great houses, his loyalty tested and proven in battle. "Young lord," he says with a respectful bow, "I am at your service." "Jon will do," the boy replies. "I am no lord." "You are what you make yourself," Sir Garth responds. "We shall see what manner of man you become." The first lessons begin immediately. Maester Lomis, an elderly scholar with ink-stained fingers, tests Jon's letters and finds them adequate but rough. The Maester sets about teaching proper penmanship, beginning with the flowing script favoured in the south. In the practice yard, Sir Garth observes Jon's swordwork with a critical eye. The boy shows promise but lacks refinement, his movements betraying his northern training. "You fight like a wolf," the knight observes, "all fury and instinct. Here you must learn to be a rose, beauty and grace, but thorns beneath." The evening meal proves an education in itself. Jon sits at the high table with the Tyrell children, learning the complex protocols of southern dining, which fork to use for which course, how to address servants properly, when to speak and when to listen. Every gesture carries meaning in this world of careful courtesy. Margaery helps him navigate the social complexities with patient guidance. She shows him how to hold his cup correctly, reminds him to compliment the cook's efforts, and warns him when Lord Mace begins one of his lengthy stories about the siege of Storm's End. "You will fit in well here," she whispers during a lull in conversation. But you must learn quickly. The South has many rules. Loras proves an eager companion for sword practice, though his form needs work as much as Jon's. The two boys take turns, striking at practice dummies with wooden blades, their laughter echoing across the yard. Willers watches their play with the serious air of an elder brother. Already he shows signs of the tactical mind that will make him a formidable lord. He offers advice on footwork and positioning, knowledge gleaned from observing the master-at-arms. Garland joins their practice when his own lessons permit. Though younger than Willis, he shows natural talent with weapons that impresses even Sir Garth. His strength and speed hint at the great knight he will become. As night falls over Highgarden, Jon stands at his chamber window, looking out over the gardens. Moonlight transforms the roses into silver and shadow, their perfume drifting on the warm evening air. Somewhere in the distance, a nightingale sings its liquid song. The boy thinks of Winterfell, cold and distant now, its grey walls already fading in memory. This place of beauty and abundance offers opportunities he never dreamed possible. Yet something in his heart remains northern, unchanging as winter itself. Tomorrow will bring new lessons, new challenges, new ways of being in the world. Jon Snow, the northern bastard, begins his transformation into something else entirely. What that will be, only time will reveal. But tonight, surrounded by roses and gentle voices, he sleeps peacefully in his tower chamber. The first day of his southern education ends with dreams of green gardens and golden towers, a bastard boy learning to bloom where he is planted. 3 years pass like seasons at Highgarden, each bringing new growth to the boy who came south as a bastard of the north. Jon Snow stands in the practice yard on a warm morning in 289 AC, his wooden sword moving with precision that would impress seasoned knights. At 6 years old, he has grown tall for his age, his dark hair catching the southern sun as he flows through the sword forms Sir Garth has drilled into him. "Better," Garland Tyrell observes from the sidelines, his own blade resting against his shoulder. "But you still telegraph your high strikes." Jon adjusts his grip and repeats the movement, this time concealing his intent until the last moment. The wooden blade cuts air with a sharp whistle, striking the practice dummy exactly where a man's heart would beat. "Much better?" Garland grins. "You learn quickly, Jon Snow." The bond between Jon and Garland has deepened over the years of shared training. Though Garland is 2 years older, they match each other in reach and determination. Under Sir Garth's watchful eye, the two boys have pushed each other to greater heights, their friendly rivalry sharpening both their skills. "Your footwork has improved," Willis adds, from where he sits, reading beneath a flowering tree. At 12, the heir to Highgarden already shows the scholarly mind that will make him a great lord. His observations of their practice often prove more valuable than formal instruction. "Northern stubbornness serves you well," Olenna's voice cuts across the yard. The Queen of Thorns approaches with her customary sharp smile, Margaery walking beside her with perfect posture. "But you must learn southern subtlety to match it." Jon bows respectfully to the lady of the house. In 3 years, he has learned to navigate her wit and wisdom, understanding that every word carries layers of meaning. "Lady Olenna," he says formally, "how may subtlety improve sword work?" "By teaching you that the greatest victories come before the sword is drawn," she replies. "Watch Lord Mace at the next feast. See how he wins through words what others would claim through steel." Margaery steps forward, now 6 years old, and already showing signs of the beauty that will make her famous. Her friendship with Jon has grown into something approaching sibling affection, though he remains conscious of the distance between a bastard and a lord's daughter. "Jon," she says with the directness of childhood, "will you walk with me in the rose garden? I wish to show you the new blooms." Jon glances at his training partners. Garland waves him away with good humor, while Willis nods approvingly. The lessons of courtesy matter, as much as those of swordplay. The rose garden proves magnificent in the morning light, its carefully tended beds displaying flowers in every shade imaginable. Margaery leads Jon along paths of crushed marble, her knowledge of each variety impressive for one so young. "This one came from Lys," she explains, indicating a climbing rose with petals like cream silk. "And these purple ones grow wild in the summer isles." Jon listens attentively, though his mind often drifts to more practical matters. The beauty of Highgarden still amazes him after 3 years, but he understands now that it represents more than decoration. Every rose, every fountain, every perfectly placed stone speaks of House Tyrell's wealth and power. "You think too much about serious things," Margaery observes with the perception that runs in her bloodline. Even Willis laughs sometimes. "I think about staying worthy of your family's trust," Jon replies honestly. Margaery stops walking and studies him with green eyes that seem older than her years. "You are already worthy, Jon Snow. You just need to believe it yourself." The months that follow bring steady progress in all areas of Jon's education. Maester Lomis pronounces his letters excellent, his sums adequate, and his knowledge of history remarkable for a boy his age. The long evenings spent reading by candlelight have filled his mind with tales of great knights and noble deeds. Loras proves an eager companion in these studies, though his interests run more to songs of chivalry than accounts of ancient battles. At 7 years old, he already shows the charm that will make him beloved throughout the 7 kingdoms. His friendship with Jon carries the easy warmth of brothers. "Listen to this," Loras says one evening as they read together in the library. "Sir Galadon of Morn was so pure of heart that his armor shone like silver, and his sword could cleave through steel as easily as silk." Jon considers this claim with the skepticism Willis has taught him. Maester Lomis says most songs exaggerate the truth. "Perhaps," Loras admits, "but would it not be glorious if they were true?" The conversation is interrupted by the arrival of a raven, bearing black wings and urgent news. Word spreads quickly through Highgarden's halls. Balon Greyjoy has declared himself King of the Iron Islands, his long ships raiding the western coast of Westeros. In the Great Hall, Mace Tyrell reads the royal summons aloud to his assembled household. King Robert calls his banners to put down this rebellion, demanding levies from all loyal houses. "The rose of Highgarden will bloom on the field of battle," Mace declares with the bombast that characterizes his public speeches. House Tyrell answers the king's call. Jon listens to the martial preparations with growing excitement. At 6 years old, he feels ready to prove himself in service to his foster family. That evening, he approaches Lord Mace in his solar with a request that surprises the Lord of the Reach. "My lord," Jon says with careful formality, "I request permission to serve as your squire in the coming campaign." Mace sets down his wine cup and studies the boy with genuine amazement. "You are brave to ask, Jon Snow, but you are far too young for war." "I am strong for my age," Jon insists. "Sir Garth says my sword work surpasses boys 3 years older." "Your skill is not in question," Mace replies gently, "but war is no place for children, regardless of their talents." The refusal stings, but Jon accepts it with the grace Olenna has taught him. "I understand, my lord. But when I am old enough, I will fight for House Tyrell with everything I have." The sincerity in his voice moves Mace more than any formal pledge could. Here is loyalty freely given, honor willingly offered. The boy's bastard birth matters nothing compared to the purity of his devotion. "I believe you will," Mace says warmly, "and House Tyrell will be proud to call you our own." While the men of the Reach march to war, life at Highgarden continues its graceful rhythm. Jon throws himself into his studies with renewed determination, understanding that knowledge will serve him better than strength alone. He observes Olenna's handling of household business, noting how she manages land stewards and visiting lords with equal skill. "Power is like water," she tells him during one of their walks through the castle. "It flows toward those who understand its currents." Jon watches her manipulation of a grain merchant, seeing how she secures favorable terms through a combination of charm and veiled threats. The lesson proves more valuable than any sword technique. The autumn of 289 brings news of victory. The Iron Fleet burns at Fair Isle, Balon Greyjoy bends the knee, and young Theon Greyjoy travels north as Ned Stark's ward. Jon feels a strange kinship with this other boy torn from his family, though their circumstances differ greatly. When the victorious armies return to the Reach, Highgarden hosts a feast to celebrate the realm's triumph. Jon, now 7 years old, moves through the festivities with confidence that would amaze those who knew him as a shy, northern bastard. He converses easily with visiting lords, remembering their names and interests from previous encounters. When Lady Hightower inquires about his studies, he responds with intelligent observations about the rebellion's causes and consequences. His manner combines northern honesty with southern Polish in a way that impresses all who meet him. "The boy has potential," he overhears Lord Redwyn tell Mace during the evening. "Bastard-born or not, he could rise high in your service." Mace's response carries warmth and pride. "Jon Snow is a credit to both our houses. His father should be proud." Later that night, as the feast winds down, Jon stands on a balcony overlooking Highgarden's moonlit gardens. Lady Allery Hightower, daughter of the Lord of Old Town, joins him in the cool evening air. At 13, she possesses the ethereal beauty that characterizes her house, her silver hair catching starlight like spun moonbeams. "You dance well for a northern boy," she observes with a smile that makes Jon's heart race. "Lady Margaery taught me," he replies, proud of keeping his voice steady. "She says grace can be learned like any other skill." "Indeed it can," Allery agrees. "You have learned much since coming south." Jon nods, acutely aware of his bastard status, even as he enjoys her attention. "I am grateful for House Tyrell's kindness." "Gratitude suits you," she says softly, "but do not let it limit your ambitions." The conversation continues in gentle exchanges that leave Jon feeling both exhilarated and confused. He has noticed girls before, but never one who seemed to notice him in return. The attention flatters him, even as he wonders what future could exist between a bastard and a lord's daughter. When Allery eventually returns to the feast, Jon remains on the balcony, wrestling with new emotions. The boy who came south, seeking only safety, has found something approaching acceptance. The roses of Highgarden have indeed taught him much, shaping him into someone who can move confidently in both worlds. By his 8th name day, in 291 AC, Jon has become a fixture of Highgarden's social landscape. Visiting lords seek his opinions on matters of import, ladies comment favorably on his courtesy, and younger boys look to him as a model of proper behavior. His bastard birth, while never forgotten, has become merely one aspect of a complex identity. The long years of careful cultivation have borne fruit. Jon Snow the Northern Bastard has transformed into Jon of Highgarden, a young man of promise whose future stretches bright before him. The roses have indeed grown strong, and none more so than the dark-haired boy who came south with nothing but his father's name. As he stands once more in the practice yard, wooden sword dancing through complex patterns, Jon embodies the motto of his foster house, growing strong indeed, and this is only the beginning of what he might become. The seasons turn, the roses bloom and fade, and still Jon Snow grows stronger in the gardens of his southern home. What the future holds remains unwritten, but one truth stands certain. House Tyrell's investment in the bastard of Winterfell will yield returns beyond anyone's imagining. With that certainty, the formative years draw to a close, and greater challenges loom on the horizon. The tournament field at Old Town blazes with banners and bright pavilions, as lords from across the Reach gather to celebrate Lord Leighton Hightower's name day. Jon Snow stands beside Loras Tyrell's Destria, checking the straps on his young lord's armor with practiced efficiency. At 10 years old, Jon serves as squire to Loras in his first formal tournament, an honor that speaks to the trust house Tyrell places in Ned Stark's bastard. "Remember," Jon says quietly as he hands Loras his helm, "keep your lance steady through the impact. Let the horse do the work." Loras grins beneath his visor, his confidence infectious despite his youth. At 11, he already shows the natural grace that will make him the Knight of Flowers. "I shall try not to disgrace House Tyrell, Jon Snow." "You could never do that," Jon replies, with the loyalty that has become his defining trait. The years since the Greyjoy Rebellion have transformed Jon from a promising boy into something approaching a young man. At 10 years old, he stands taller than most boys his age, his shoulders broadening with the muscle that comes from endless hours in the practice yard. His dark hair, now long enough to tie back in the southern fashion, frames features that combine northern seriousness with southern refinement. More importantly, his reputation has begun to spread beyond Highgarden's walls. Stories of the bastard who trains with Tyrell knights, who speaks with lords as an equal, who displays loyalty beyond his birth, have reached interested ears throughout the Seven Kingdoms. In the royal pavilion, King Robert Baratheon holds court with his characteristic mixture of joviality and impatience. The years since his rebellion have softened his warrior's frame, but his presence still dominates any gathering. Beside him sits Queen Cersei, her golden hair catching the afternoon sun as her green eyes survey the assembled nobility with predatory interest. "That boy there," Lord Mathis Rowan points toward Jon as he tends to Loras's gear. "The one serving as squire. I'm told he's Ned Stark's bastard, fostered with the Tyrells these past years." Robert's attention focuses on Jon with sudden intensity. "Ned's boy? I remember him from the last time I visited Winterfell. Small thing then, barely walking. He has grown considerable since," Rowan continues. "They say he can best boys 3 years his senior in the practice yard. Lord Mace speaks of him as if he were true-born." Cersei's interest sharpens like a blade drawn from its sheath. Any alliance between great houses concerns her, especially one involving the North and the Reach. The implications of such cooperation could threaten Lannister supremacy in ways she cannot ignore. "A bastard," she says, with the disdain that colors her voice whenever she speaks of those born outside marriage. What threat could such a creature pose? But her eyes remain fixed on Jon, cataloguing his every movement, storing away details for future consideration. The boy's easy confidence among southern nobles troubles her more than she cares to admit. The tournament proceeds with all the pageantry expected of such events. Loras acquits himself well in his first real joust, unhorsing a knight of House Mullendore to the cheers of the Reach lords. Jon runs onto the field to help his knight to his feet, their easy camaraderie drawing favorable comments from the watching nobility. "The boy has excellent manners," Lady Olenna observes from her place in the Tyrell pavilion. "Northern bastard or not, he understands how to conduct himself among his betters." Mace Tyrell nods with evident pride. "Jon has become like a son to our house. His loyalty is beyond question." Loyalty is a valuable commodity, Olenna muses, but it can also attract unwanted attention from those who fear such devotion might be turned against them. The warning proves prophetic. Within a fortnight of their return to Highgarden, ravens begin arriving with increased frequency. Some bear innocent messages of congratulation on Loras's tournament success. Others carry more pointed inquiries about the Stark bastard's place in Tyrell plans. The most significant arrives on a morning when autumn mist clings to Highgarden's towers. Jon practices his sword forms in the courtyard when Maester Lomis summons him to Lord Mace's solar. There he finds the Lord of the Reach studying a parchment with unusual intensity. "Jon," Mace says without preamble, You have received a marriage proposal. The words strike Jon like a physical blow. At 10 years old, talk of marriage seems impossibly distant, yet he understands the political implications immediately. "From whom, my lord?" Jon asks, proud that his voice remains steady. "Lord Merryweather of Longtable. He offers his youngest daughter's hand, along with a small keep and lands sufficient to support a minor lordship." Jon considers this carefully. House Merryweather, while not among the greatest houses of the Reach, commands respect and resources. For a bastard to receive such an offer speaks to his rising status in ways both flattering and concerning. "What does this mean?" Jon inquires. Mace sets down the parchment and studies the boy he has helped raise. "It means that important men see value in allying themselves with you. Your connection to both House Stark and House Tyrell makes you an attractive prospect." The implications settle over Jon like a heavy cloak. He has always known his bastard status set him apart, but he has also learned that clever alliances can overcome even the circumstances of birth. Yet with opportunity comes danger, as Olenna's lessons have taught him. "What would you counsel, my lord?" "That you are still young," Mace replies diplomatically. "Such decisions need not be made hastily." But Jon sees the calculation in his foster father's eyes. The proposal represents both validation and complication for House Tyrell's long-term plans. The arrival of Ned Stark a moon's turn later provides welcome distraction from such weighty matters. Jon's father rides through Highgarden's gates with a small escort, his northern cloak and serious demeanor marking him as a stranger to southern customs despite years of rule. Jon waits in the courtyard as his father dismounts, suddenly uncertain how to greet the man who raised him for his first 3 years. The boy who left Winterfell as a toddler has become someone quite different from what Ned might expect. "Father," Jon says formally, offering a perfect southern bow. Ned's face softens as he takes in his son's transformation. Jon now stands nearly as tall as Margaery, his posture reflecting years of courtly training. His clothes follow southern fashions, his speech carries southern cadences, and his manner displays the polished confidence of noble upbringing. "Jon," Ned replies, emotion thick in his voice. "You have grown." Father and son embrace, but Jon feels the distance that years and miles have created between them. He loves the man who protected him as an infant, yet Highgarden has become his true home in ways that Winterfell never was. The days of Ned's visit pass in careful navigation of old bonds and new realities. Jon shows his father the castle and gardens, introduces him to his Tyrell siblings, and demonstrates the skills he has acquired. Yet beneath the surface, both understand that the bastard boy of Winterfell has become something else entirely. "You seem happy here," Ned observes one evening as they walk through the rose gardens. "I am," Jon replies honestly. "House Tyrell has given me opportunities I never dreamed possible." "And what of the North? Do you ever think of returning?" The question touches the deepest uncertainty in Jon's heart. Winterfell remains part of him, its grey stones and cold winds calling to something in his blood. Yet the South has shaped him, claimed him, given him a place and purpose that the North never could. "I think of it often," Jon admits, "but my place is here now. My loyalty belongs to those who have shown faith in me." Ned nods with understanding that carries its own sadness. "You have become something I never expected when I sent you south. Something better, perhaps, than what you might have been in the North." Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Olenna, who approaches with her customary directness. "Lord Stark, walk with me. Your son's future requires discussion." Jon watches them move away together, understanding that important decisions are being made without his presence. The boy has learned to read the currents of political maneuvering, and tonight those currents run deep indeed. In the privacy of her solar, Olenna speaks with characteristic bluntness. "Your son attracts attention, Lord Stark. Some of it welcome, some less so. What kind of attention? Ned asks, though he suspects he already knows. The kind that comes when a bastard begins to seem like more than his birth suggests. Marriage proposals, invitations to court, inquiries about his training and loyalty. She pauses meaningfully. Questions about his parentage. The last words hit Ned like arrows finding their mark. What questions? Nothing specific yet, but observant eyes note that Jon bears little resemblance to you beyond his dark hair. Some wonder if his mother might have been someone more significant than the common woman you claim. Ned's blood runs cold. The secret he has guarded for 7 years faces its first real challenge, and from an unexpected direction. Jon's very success threatens to expose the truth Ned has died to protect. Jon is my son, Ned says firmly. That is all anyone needs know. Of course, Olenna agrees smoothly. But truth has a way of serving those who understand its value. Your son's future may depend on how carefully such truths are managed. The warning hangs in the air between them, like smoke from a funeral pyre. Jon's transformation from bastard to political asset has created new dangers that neither Ned nor the Tyrells fully anticipated. Later that night, Jon lies awake in his chamber, listening to voices carry through the walls. He catches fragments of conversation between his father and Lord Mace, words about protection and caution, and the growing complexity of his situation. For the first time since arriving at Highgarden, Jon begins to understand that his bastard birth might be more complicated than anyone has told him. The whispered conversations and careful silences start to form a pattern that troubles his sleep. When morning comes, Ned prepares to depart, with obvious reluctance. His farewell to Jon carries weight beyond normal parting, as if he understands that their relationship will never again be quite what it was. Be careful who you trust, Ned counsels as they embrace. Great men often have great secrets, and secrets can be dangerous to those who stumble upon them. Jon nods solemnly, filing away the warning for future consideration. As his father rides north toward Winterfell, the bastard boy of Highgarden stands at the crossroads of his young life, unaware that forces beyond his understanding have begun to take notice of his existence. The rose's thorn has begun to draw blood, and the Game of Thrones has claimed another player whether he wishes to join or not. What comes next will test everything Jon has learned about loyalty, honor, and the complex truths that bind great houses together. In the distance, storm clouds gather on the political horizon, and Jon Snow stands squarely in their path. The great hall of Highgarden rings with the clash of steel as Jon Snow faces 3 opponents in the morning melee. At 12 years old, he has grown tall and strong, his dark hair tied back in the warrior's knot as he moves with deadly grace between the older knights. Sir Garth Hightower watches from the sidelines, pride evident in his weathered features as his pupil demonstrates years of careful training. Jon's first opponent, a knight of House Mullendore, rushes forward with sword raised high. The attack proves clumsy, telegraphed by poor footwork that Jon exploits without mercy. He sidesteps the blow and brings his own blade across the man's ribs with controlled force, sending him stumbling to the sand. "First blood to Jon Snow," Garland Tyrell calls from the gallery, his voice carrying approval and excitement. The second knight proves more cautious, a greybeard veteran of the Greyjoy Rebellion who understands that youth can be dangerous when properly trained. He circles Jon warily, testing the boy's defenses with quick, probing attacks. Jon meets each strike with perfect form, his blade dancing through the defensive patterns Sir Garth has drilled into his muscle memory. But defense alone will not win this contest. When the older knight overextends on a thrust toward Jon's shoulder, the boy spins aside and delivers a pommel strike to the man's temple that drops him instantly. "Two down," Loras shouts from beside his brother, caught up in the excitement of his friend's prowess. The final opponent, Sir Daemon Sand of House Illyrian, approaches with the respect due a worthy foe. The Dornish knight has travelled north with Prince Oberyn's delegation, and his reputation for skill precedes him. His curved blade moves in patterns unfamiliar to northern or reach combat, creating new challenges for Jon's traditionally trained responses. "Come then, bastard," Demon says with professional courtesy. "Show me what the roses have taught you." The duel that follows proves the finest display of swordwork seen in Highgarden's yard in recent memory. Demon's exotic techniques force Jon to adapt constantly, abandoning formal patterns in favor of pure instinct and reflex. Yet the boy's northern grit combines with southern finesse to create something greater than either tradition alone. When Jon finally lands the winning blow, a perfectly timed thrust that slips past Demon's guard to touch his throat, the watching nobles burst into spontaneous applause. He has defeated 3 grown men in single combat, announcing his arrival as a warrior to be reckoned with. Prince Oberyn Martell rises from his seat in the gallery, his dark eyes bright with interest. The Red Viper has come north, seeking alliance against Lannister power, and he recognizes potential when he sees it. "Impressive," Oberyn declares, as Jon removes his helm and bows to the gallery. "The boy fights with fire in his blood." Margaery Tyrell applauds with particular enthusiasm, her green eyes shining with pride for her closest friend's achievement. At 12, she has blossomed into the beauty that will make her famous. But her friendship with Jon transcends physical attraction. They understand each other in ways that speak to deeper compatibility. "He grows stronger every day," she tells her grandmother, as the melee concludes. Olenna studies the pair with calculating eyes. Indeed he does. The question becomes what to do with such strength. The evening feast celebrating Prince Oberyn's visit provides ample opportunity to explore that question. Jon sits at the high table as an honored guest, his victory in the melee having elevated his status yet again. The Dornish delegation regards him with new respect, while visiting lords from the Reach whisper among themselves about the bastard's remarkable skills. Oberyn engages Jon in conversation throughout the meal, probing the boy's knowledge of history, politics, and warfare. He finds a mind sharpened by years of Olenna's tutelage, capable of understanding complex political realities while maintaining the honor that characterizes his northern upbringing. "Tell me," Oberyn says, as the wine flows freely, "what do you make of the current peace in the Seven Kingdoms?" Jon considers his words carefully, aware that important men hang on his every statement. "Peace built on Lannister gold and Robert's reputation may not endure forever, my prince. Smart lords prepare for the future." The answer pleases Oberyn immensely. Here is a bastard who thinks like a lord, who sees beyond immediate circumstances to understand the deeper currents of power. Such men can be valuable allies in the struggles to come. "Your fostering here has served you well," Oberyn observes. "House Tyrell has invested much in your education." "They have been more than generous," Jon replies with genuine warmth. "I owe them everything." And what do they expect in return for such investment? The question cuts to the heart of Jon's situation. He has always understood that his presence at Highgarden serves larger purposes than simple charity, but the exact nature of those purposes has remained unclear until recently. "Loyalty," Jon answers honestly. "Service. Perhaps something more, given time and opportunity." Oberyn nods approvingly. Honest words. I respect that in a man, regardless of his birth. As the feast progresses, Jon notices how often conversations turn to his future. Lords speak of possible marriages, military commands, even the prospect of legitimization, should he prove worthy. The attention flatters him while creating pressure he has never experienced before. Lady Lyness Hightower, visiting with her father from Old Town, draws particular interest from both Jon and Loras. At 15, she possesses ethereal beauty that would challenge Helen of Troy, her silver hair and pale eyes marking her as one of the great beauties of her generation. "She is magnificent," Loras whispers to Jon as they watch her dance with Willis. Jon nods agreement, acutely aware of the competition developing between himself and his closest friend. Both boys have reached the age where feminine beauty affects them deeply, and Lynesse represents the pinnacle of such attraction. The rivalry creates tension where none existed before. Jon and Loras compete for Lynesse's attention throughout her visit, each trying to impress her with wit, skill, and courtesy. The contest strains their friendship in ways that concern the watching adults. "Youth," Olenna observes to Margaery, as they witness another awkward exchange between the boys. "It makes fools of even the wisest men." Margaery's response carries surprising maturity for her age. Perhaps they need reminding that some prizes are not worth the cost of friendship. Her intervention comes during a hunt where both Jon and Loras have volunteered to serve as Lynesse's escorts. When the boys begin competing for her approval with increasingly reckless displays of horsemanship, Margaery rides between them with calm authority. "Enough," she says firmly. "Lady Lynesse has 2 perfectly good escorts. She needs neither of you risking your necks for her entertainment." The gentle rebuke brings both boys to their senses, reminding them that their friendship matters more than any passing infatuation. By the hunt's end, they have reconciled their differences and agreed to let Lynesse choose between them without further competition. She chooses neither, of course, having been promised to a Hightower cousin since birth. But the lesson remains valuable. Some contests cannot be won, only endured with grace. The arrival of a raven from Castle Black provides welcome distraction from such romantic entanglements. Jon receives his first letter from his uncle, Benjen Stark, now First Ranger of the Night's Watch. The message speaks of life on the Wall, of ranging beyond it into the vast wilderness, of service to the realm that transcends personal ambition. "The boy grows into something worth watching," Benjen writes in his careful script. "But remember that honor means more than advancement. The Wall teaches men what truly matters, should you ever choose to learn such lessons." The letter stirs thoughts Jon has not entertained in years. His northern heritage calls to him across the miles, reminding him of duties and traditions that southern comfort cannot replace. Yet he also understands that his path lies elsewhere now, shaped by forces beyond his choosing. Olenna finds him reading the letter in the Godswood, where he often retreats when troubled by weighty thoughts. The ancient heart tree provides peaceful sanctuary from the constant pressures of court life. "News from the north?" she inquires, settling beside him on a stone bench with her customary directness. "My uncle writes of duty and honor," Jon replies. "Sometimes I wonder if I have strayed too far from such simple truths." "Honor is admirable," Olenna says carefully, "but it must be tempered with wisdom to be useful. Your uncle serves at the Wall by choice. You serve here by necessity, though that necessity has become opportunity." Jon looks at her with growing understanding. "What opportunity, my lady?" Olenna's smile carries secrets accumulated over decades of political maneuvering. "The opportunity to reshape the realm itself. The current order serves House Lannister above all others. In time, that must change." The words hang between them like a challenge issued and accepted. For the first time, Jon glimpses the true scope of Tyrell ambitions. He has not simply been fostered here for his own advancement, but moulded into a weapon for use against enemies yet to be faced. "And what role would I play in such changes?" Jon asks quietly. "That depends on how much you have truly learned," Olenna replies. "Power is like water, flowing toward those who understand its currents. You have shown aptitude for such understanding. The question becomes whether you possess the will to act upon it." Jon considers her words carefully, weighing the implications against everything he has believed about himself and his place in the world. The bastard boy who came south, seeking only safety, has become something far more complex and dangerous. "I have sworn loyalty to House Tyrell," he says finally. "That loyalty includes whatever service you require." "Good," Olenna nods with satisfaction. "But remember that true loyalty sometimes demands actions that appear to contradict it. The Game of Thrones rewards those who understand such paradoxes. As the days pass, Jon begins to notice changes in how others treat him. Lords who once patronized him now seek his opinions on matters of substance. Marriage proposals arrive with increasing frequency, each offering greater rewards than the last. Whispers follow him through Highgarden's halls, speaking of legitimization, of lands and titles, of a future that transcends bastard birth. The transformation troubles him, even as it flatters his pride. Success brings opportunity, but it also brings attention from those who prefer the current order unchanged. Jon has learned enough of politics to understand that making oneself indispensable also makes oneself a target. During Prince Oberyn's final evening at Highgarden, the Dornish prince seeks private audience with Jon in the castle's highest tower. There, with the lights of the castle spread below them, Oberyn speaks with unusual seriousness about the future. "The realm stands at a crossroads," he says without preamble. "Robert grows older and less interested in rule. The Queen grows more ambitious and less careful. The King's brothers prepare for struggles yet to come." Jon listens intently, understanding that he receives insights usually reserved for great lords and their heirs. "In such times," Oberyn continues, "smart men choose their allegiances carefully. House Tyrell has chosen to invest in you for reasons beyond simple charity. Make certain you prove worthy of such investment." "I shall try, my prince." "Do not try," Oberyn corrects with gentle firmness. "Succeed. The Game of Thrones offers no prizes for good intentions." With that warning, the Red Viper takes his leave, departing Highgarden with new appreciation for Tyrell capabilities and the potential represented by their fostered bastard. As winter approaches Highgarden once more, Jon stands at another crossroads in his young life. The boy who arrived as Ned Stark's bastard has become Jon of Highgarden, a young man whose future blazes bright with possibility and dark with danger. The roses have indeed grown strong, and none more so than the dark-haired youth who learned to bloom in their gardens. What harvest such growth will yield remains unwritten, but one certainty emerges from the gathering shadows. Jon Snow has become a player in the Game of Thrones, whether he wills it or not. The question now becomes what kind of player he chooses to be, and whether his northern honor can survive the corruption that such games inevitably bring. Time alone will provide the answer to such crucial questions. The Raven arrives at Highgarden on a morning when spring roses bloom in defiance of gathering political storms. Jon Snow stands in the practice yard, his sword cutting precise arcs through the warm air as he flows through advanced forms that would challenge knights twice his age. At 15, he has grown into the promise of his youth. Tall and lean, with the grace of a natural swordsman and the bearing of noble breeding, Maester Lomis approaches with unusual haste, his chain clinking against his robes as he hurries across the courtyard. The parchment in his weathered hands bears the royal seal, its black wax speaking of news that will change everything. "My lord," the Maester calls to Mace Tyrell, who observes Jon's practice from beneath a flowering tree. "Urgent word from King's Landing." Jon lowers his blade as he watches Mace break the seal with fingers that tremble slightly. The Lord of Highgarden reads in silence, his face growing pale as the contents sink in. Around the yard, training stops as men sense the weight of the moment. "What news, father?" Garland asks, setting down his own sword with careful precision. Mace looks up from the parchment, his voice hollow with shock. "King Robert is dead, killed in a hunting accident 3 days past." The words strike the assembled company like thunderbolts. Jon feels the ground shift beneath his feet as implications cascade through his mind. Robert's death means Joffrey will take the throne, guided by his mother's ambitions and his grandfather's cunning. The realm stands at a crossroads that will determine the fate of every great house. "What of Lord Stark?" Jon asks, though he dreads the answer. Mace's expression grows darker still. Arrested for treason, the Queen claims he plotted to steal Joffrey's rightful crown. Jon's sword falls from nerveless fingers, clattering against the stone courtyard. His father, the most honourable man in the Seven Kingdoms, accused of treason? The charge sounds absurd, yet the implications terrify him beyond measure. "I must return to Winterfell," Jon declares with sudden fierce determination. "Robb will need every sword in the coming fight." "Peace!" Olenna's voice cuts through his rising panic like a blade through silk. The Queen of Thorns approaches with her customary measured pace, but her eyes blaze with calculations already forming. Rash action serves no one, least of all your family. Jon turns to her with barely controlled emotion. "How can I remain here while my father faces execution and my brother prepares for war?" "By remembering that you serve House Tyrell now," Olenna replies without sympathy, "and House Tyrell's interests may align with your family's, given proper consideration." Before Jon can respond, the sound of hooves thunders through Highgarden's gates. A party of riders sweeps into the courtyard with the urgency of men fleeing for their lives. At their head rides Renly Baratheon, the king's youngest brother, his usually immaculate appearance dishevelled from hard travel. "Lord Mace," Renly calls as he dismounts with fluid grace, "I seek sanctuary and alliance in these troubled times." Mace bows with the courtesy due a prince of the blood, though his eyes show careful calculation. "Highgarden welcomes you, my lord. What brings you so far from court?" Renly's handsome features twist with bitter knowledge. "My sweet nephew has ascended to the throne with the backing of his Lannister relatives. Those who question his legitimacy find themselves unwelcome in the capital." The political implications hang in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Renly's flight confirms what many have suspected. The War of Five Kings begins now, and every house must choose its allegiance carefully. Jon steps forward with the boldness that his fostering has taught him. "My Lord Renly, what of my father? What of Lord Stark?" Renly's gaze settles on Jon with recognition and sympathy. Ned Stark remains in the black cells, accused of crimes that strain credibility. Your brother has called his banners and marches south, though whether to rescue his father or avenge him remains unclear. The words confirm Jon's worst fears while offering a glimmer of hope. Robb acts as he must, gathering northern strength to face southern enemies. But the odds seem impossibly stacked against him without powerful allies. "The boy has the right of it," Renly continues, nodding toward Jon. "The realm bleeds while children play at kings. Strong men must act to restore order." Olenna moves closer to Renly, her sharp eyes studying his face with predatory interest. "What action do you propose, my lord?" Renly straightens to his full height, every inch the king he believes himself to be. "I propose to claim my rightful throne. Robert left no legitimate heir. Stannis would rule through fear and fire, and I have the stronger claim of love and loyalty." The declaration transforms the courtyard into a throne room where destinies are decided. Jon watches as the great game shifts around him, understanding that his own future hangs in the balance of choices made by others. "You would have our support?" Mace asks with the careful neutrality of a man testing dangerous waters. "I would have your daughter," Renly replies boldly. "A marriage alliance that unites the Stormlands and the Reach against all who would challenge legitimate rule." Jon's blood runs cold at the suggestion. Margaery, barely 15 and closer to him than any sister, offered like a prize in this deadly game. Yet he also understands the political wisdom behind the proposal. "And what of the North?" Jon asks before anyone can silence him. "What of Lord Stark's fate?" Renly considers the question with the gravity it deserves. "Ned Stark served my brother loyally. I would see him freed and restored to honor, his son's rebellion forgiven in exchange for fealty to the rightful king." The promise rings with sincerity, though Jon recognizes the fragility of such assurances in times of war. Still, it offers hope where none existed before. Over the following days, Highgarden becomes the center of furious political activity. Ravens fly in all directions, carrying messages to potential allies, while visiting lords pledge their swords to Renly's cause. Jon finds himself thrust into the role of intermediary, his northern heritage lending credibility to negotiations with fence-sitting houses. The betrothal ceremony takes place in Highgarden's Great Hall, attended by lords from across the Reach and beyond. Margaery stands radiant in cloth of gold, playing her part with the skill that will make her legendary. Renly appears every inch the king, his charisma filling the vast space with promises of glory to come. Jon serves as Margaery's champion during the ceremony, an honor that speaks to his rising status within House Tyrell. As he places his sword at her feet in ritual protection, their eyes meet with understanding that transcends words. Both know this marriage serves purposes greater than personal happiness. "I pledge my life to your service, your grace," Jon declares formally, "and my sword to the defense of your honor." Margaery's smile carries warmth despite the political nature of their union. "I know no better champion, Jon Snow. House Tyrell is fortunate in your friendship." The words echo through the hall, announcing to all present that Jon enjoys the special favor of their future queen. Such recognition carries both privilege and danger in equal measure. The news that changes everything arrives on a raven's wings 1 week later. Robb Stark has been proclaimed king in the north by his bannermen, rejecting all authority south of the Neck. The declaration transforms the political landscape yet again, forcing difficult choices upon those who would navigate between competing loyalties. Jon reads the message with a heart torn between pride and despair. His brother has claimed the crown of Winter Kings, but in doing so has made reconciliation with any southern claimant nearly impossible. The North stands alone against the world once more. "This complicates matters," Olenna observes with characteristic understatement as the War Council convenes. "2 kings is one too many, even for a realm as large as ours." Renly's response carries the frustration of a man whose careful plans face unexpected obstacles. The boy oversteps himself. The North cannot stand alone against the combined might of the southern kingdoms. "Perhaps not," Jon says quietly, finding his voice in the debate. "But neither can any southern king rule without northern acceptance. The realm needs unity, not conquest." His words draw sharp looks from around the table, some approving and others hostile. A bastard offering strategic advice to kings and lords walks a dangerous line indeed. Salvation comes from an unexpected source. Catelyn Stark arrives at Highgarden 3 days later, seeking alliance with the same diplomatic skill that once served Robert's cause during the rebellion. Her reunion with Jon proves emotional for both, though years have changed them beyond easy recognition. "Jon," she says simply, tears streaming down her cheeks as they embrace. "You have grown so much." "Mother," Jon replies, using the title she never allowed him in childhood, but which feels natural now. "I have heard of Father's fate. Tell me how I can help." Catelyn's mission proves straightforward: convince the Reach to support northern independence in exchange for lasting alliance against their common enemies. The proposal offers Renly everything he needs to legitimize his claim while giving the North the southern ally it requires for survival. "2 crowns can coexist if their interests align," Jon argues during the crucial negotiations. King Renly rules the south, while King Robb rules the north. Both stand against the Lannisters who destroyed their fathers and threaten their realms. The logic proves compelling to men seeking justification for their chosen course. Within the week, formal alliance is struck between the armies of spring and winter, sealed by mutual recognition and shared enemies. Jon finds himself at the center of these momentous events, his unique position making him invaluable as liaison between the competing forces. When Catelyn departs to carry word of the alliance north, she leaves behind her adopted son to serve as permanent embassy between the kingdoms. Serve them well, she counsels during their final private conversation. But never forget that Stark blood flows in your veins, whatever name you bear. Jon nods solemnly, understanding the burden she places upon him. I will serve both houses with equal honor, I swear it. The promise proves easier to make than to keep as the Reach mobilizes for war. Jon receives command of 500 Rose Knights, young men drawn from the finest families of the realm and trained to fight with discipline and skill. The responsibility both flatters and terrifies him in equal measure. You understand what this means? Garland asks, as they review the company's composition in Highgarden's armory. Jon checks the roster one final time, noting the great names that have entrusted their sons to his leadership. It means House Tyrell considers me worthy of their trust. It means more than that, Garland corrects with brotherly affection. It means you have become one of us in truth, bastard name or not. The roses have claimed you completely. As Jon stands in the practice yard where his southern education began, watching his knights prepare for war, he reflects on the journey that brought him to this moment. The bastard boy of Winterfell has become Jon of Highgarden, sworn sword to a queen and commander of Rose Knights riding to war. The storms gathering over Westeros will test everything he has learned about honor, loyalty, and the complex truths that bind great houses together. Whether he emerges from the coming trials as hero or casualty remains unwritten in the annals of history. But one truth stands certain as the banners snap in the wind. Jon Snow has found his place in the great game at last, and the Seven Kingdoms will never be quite the same. War comes to the realm of roses and wolves, and all who dwell there must face the storms ahead with whatever courage they possess. The host of Highgarden rides north through the green hills of the Reach like a golden tide of war. 5,000 cavalry follow Jon Snow's banner, their armor gleaming in the morning sun as they thunder toward the Riverlands and the battles waiting there. At 15, Jon commands more men than many lords see in a lifetime, yet he bears the responsibility with the calm confidence that years at Highgarden have instilled in him. Sir Garth Hightower rides at his right hand, the grizzled knight serving as both advisor and insurance against the folly of youth. Behind them stream the flower of Reach nobility, Hightowers and Redwynes, Rowans and Oakharts, all united under the golden rose that snaps proudly in the wind. River Run lies 2 days ahead, Garth reports, as they crest a hill overlooking the broad Blackwater rush. Our scouts report Lannister banners surrounding the castle. Lord Edmure holds out, but barely. Jon studies the terrain with eyes trained by Willis Tyrell to see tactical possibilities in every landscape. The river runs swift and deep here, creating natural barriers that clever commanders can exploit. If the Lannisters have invested Riverrun properly, breaking their siege will require more than simple courage. How many men do they have? Jon asks, his mind already working through potential approaches. Perhaps 3,000, Garth replies, but they hold strong positions and have had weeks to prepare their defenses. Jon nods thoughtfully. Numbers matter less than positioning in siege warfare, as every student of military history understands. The Lannisters may hold the advantage of preparation, but Jon commands the finest heavy cavalry in Westeros. Speed and surprise can overcome even the strongest fortifications. The War Council that evening brings together the young lords who have followed Jon north. Men like Sir Alistair Tyrell, Lord Mace's cousin, and Sir Garland Flowers, a bastard knight whose skill with a lance has earned him recognition throughout the Reach. They gather around a map spread on Jon's campaign table, studying the approaches to Riverrun by flickering torchlight. A direct assault would be costly, Sir Alistair observes, with the caution of a man who has seen sieges before. The Lannisters have had time to dig trenches and position scorpions. Then we do not assault their prepared positions, Jon replies with growing confidence. We create chaos they cannot prepare for. His plan emerges through careful discussion with his subordinates. Rather than attack Riverrun directly, they will strike the Lannister supply trains moving north from the Westerlands. Cut off from provisions and reinforcement, the besiegers will find their positions untenable. Bold, Garth admits when Jon finishes outlining his strategy, but risky. If we fail, Riverrun falls and we face Tywin Lannister's full attention. If we succeed, Jon counters, we save the Riverlands and prove that Northern Reach Alliance can achieve what neither could alone. The attack comes at dawn, when mist rises from the river and men's eyes struggle to pierce the grey morning light. Jon leads his cavalry in a thunderous charge that strikes the Lannister supply column like a hammer blow. Wagons loaded with grain and weapons scatter like leaves before the autumn wind as Rose Knights drive deep into the enemy formation. Jon's sword rises and falls with mechanical precision as he cuts down Lannister men-at-arms who try to form defensive lines. The blade feels light as air in his hands, years of training flowing into instinctive motion that turns battle into deadly dance. "For House Tyrell!" he shouts above the clash of steel and thunder of hooves. "For the Riverlands!" The cry is taken up by hundreds of voices as Reach cavalry rolls over Lannister resistance. Within an hour, the supply train lies in ruins, and its guards scatter toward the western hills. Jon has won his first victory as a commander, and the taste proves sweeter than he imagined. Word of the attack reaches the siege lines around Riverrun before midday. Faced with dwindling supplies and a hostile army behind their lines, the Lannister commanders abandon their positions and withdraw toward more defensible ground. By evening, the castle's gates stand open, and Tully banners fly once more above its ancient walls. The reunion with Robb Stark takes place in Riverrun's Great Hall, where the young king in the north holds court, surrounded by his bannermen. Jon enters with a small escort, his southern finery marking him as different from the grim Northmen who fill the room. Robb rises from his chair with a smile that carries both joy and uncertainty. The brothers embrace with genuine warmth, yet Jon feels the distance that years and circumstances have created between them. They have both changed too much to return to the easy companionship of childhood. "Jon," Robb says with emotion thick in his voice, "you have grown into quite the warrior." "As have you, Your Grace," Jon replies formally, using the title that acknowledges his brother's royal status. The formality stings them both, a reminder that politics has claimed their family bond as casualty. Yet duty demands such recognition in the presence of great lords who watch every interaction for signs of weakness or division. The days that follow bring constant negotiation as Northern and Reach forces learn to fight together. Jon serves as translator between different military traditions, helping Catelyn Stark understand Reach tactical preferences while explaining Northern honor codes to his Tyrell subordinates. "They fight well enough," Sir Alistair observes, after watching Northern infantry practice their battle formations. "But they lack discipline compared to Reach levies." "They have something more valuable than discipline," Jon corrects diplomatically. "They have loyalty born of shared hardship. Northern men fight harder because they fight for each other." The lesson proves valuable when combined armies march west to engage Tywin Lannister's host near the Golden Tooth. Jon's cavalry screens the northern advance, while Robb's infantry forms the battle line, their different strengths complementing each other perfectly. The Battle of the Fords becomes the test that proves the alliance's worth. Tywin Lannister attempts to force a crossing of the Red Fork, his veteran legions advancing in perfect formation toward Robb's waiting spears. For a moment, it appears the northern line might break under the pressure of Lannister discipline and experience. Jon seizes the crucial moment to launch his cavalry charge into Tywin's exposed flank. 5,000 heavy horse strike the Lannister formation like a thunderbolt, their impact sending shockwaves through ranks that have dominated battlefields for decades. "Now!" Jon shouts above the chaos as his knights drive deep into enemy lines. "Break them now!" The charge succeeds beyond his wildest hopes. Lannister formations shatter under the impact of Reach steel, their careful discipline dissolving into desperate flight. Tywin's supposedly invincible host breaks apart like waves against unyielding stone. In the aftermath, Jon finds himself face to face with a golden-haired knight whose reputation precedes him throughout the Seven Kingdoms. Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer himself, fights desperately to reach his father's position as the Lannister army collapses around him. Their duel proves brief but intense. Jaime's legendary skill meets Jon's youthful strength and southern training in a contest that could determine the battle's outcome. Steel rings against steel as they exchange blows that would kill lesser men, each seeking the opening that will end the fight. Jon finds his chance when Jaime overextends on a thrust toward his heart. The younger man spins aside and brings his pommel down on Jaime's helm with stunning force. The Kingslayer drops like a stone, unconscious but alive. "I yield him to you," Jon tells Robb, as northern soldiers bind their famous prisoner. "Let his capture seal the alliance between our houses." Robb nods with understanding, recognizing the political wisdom behind the gesture. Jaime Lannister's imprisonment gives them leverage that might prove crucial in negotiations to come. The weeks following the battle bring Jon recognition from across the Seven Kingdoms. Ravens arrive daily, bearing messages from great lords who seek alliance with the young commander, whose tactical brilliance has humbled the mighty Tywin Lannister. Marriage proposals flood Highgarden's halls as ambitious families recognize Jon's rising star. Daughters of lords paramount, heiresses to great fortunes, even a Martell princess from distant Dawn, all are offered to secure alliance with House Tyrell's newest asset. "You have become quite the prize," Margaery observes during one of their rare private conversations. She visits the war camp disguised as a simple noblewoman, though her beauty draws stares from every man present. "I am the same person who left Highgarden," Jon protests, though he knows the words ring false. "Are you?" Margaery challenges with the insight that characterizes her family. "The Jon I knew would never have commanded 5,000 men in battle, or captured the Kingslayer, or inspired marriage proposals from 3 kingdoms." Her words force Jon to confront the transformation that war has wrought upon him. The bastard fostered for protection has become a commander whose reputation spreads across continents. Success brings opportunities he never imagined, but also responsibilities that weigh heavily on his young shoulders. The raven that changes everything arrives from Highgarden on a morning when autumn mist clings to the river valleys. Loras writes in his own hand, the words stark and terrible in their simplicity. "King Renly is dead, killed by shadow in his own tent while guards stood watch outside. The manner of his death defies explanation, though whispers speak of dark sorcery. Queen Margaery is safe, but our allegiance now lies with King Stannis Baratheon. The realm has one less king, and House Tyrell must navigate new currents carefully." Jon reads the message twice before its full meaning sinks in. Renly's death leaves Margaery a widow before her marriage could be consummated, while the Tyrell alliance shifts towards Stannis and his Red Priestess. The political landscape transforms once again, forcing new choices upon those who would survive the Game of Thrones. "What news?" Robb asks, noting Jon's troubled expression. Jon hands over the letter without comment, watching his brother's face as he absorbs the implications. With Renly dead, the alliance between North and Reach must be renegotiated on new terms, assuming it survives at all. "This changes everything," Robb says finally. "Perhaps," Jon agrees, "but our enemies remain the same. The Lannisters still hold my father prisoner, still threaten both our realms. Whatever king the Reach chooses to follow, they need our friendship to achieve their goals." The words carry more hope than certainty, but they reflect political realities that even grief-stricken allies must acknowledge. The War of 5 Kings continues despite royal deaths, its outcome still dependent on the choices made by those who command armies and influence kingdoms. As Jon stands in his command tent, surrounded by maps and reports, he reflects on how far he has travelled from the practice yards of Highgarden. The bastard boy learning southern graces has become a commander whose decisions affect the fate of nations. Whether that transformation will prove blessing or curse remains to be written in the blood of battles yet to come. The Rose Knights' War has begun in earnest, and Jon Snow finds himself at its very center. What emerges from the chaos ahead depends on choices not yet made, and alliances not yet forged. But one truth stands certain. The bastard of Winterfell has claimed his place among the great captains of the age. War continues to rage across the Riverlands, and Jon Snow stands ready to face whatever storms the future may bring. The Roses and Wolves fight together still, their alliance tested but not broken by the death of kings and the rise of new powers. In that unity lies hope for victory against enemies that would see both houses destroyed. The Game of Thrones claims another player, but Jon Snow remains on the board, his position stronger than ever before. The Raven from Riverrun arrives at Jon's camp on a morning when frost covers the ground like scattered diamonds. The message bears Robb's personal seal, but the words within carry implications that chill Jon more than any winter wind. His brother has married Jane Westerling, the daughter of a minor lord whose family owes allegiance to House Lannister. Jon reads the parchment twice before setting it down with carefully controlled movements. Around him, his command tent bustles with the routine business of war. Maps spread across tables, reports from scouts, requisitions for supplies. Yet all of it fades into background noise as he contemplates the political disaster that Robb's marriage represents. "Sir Garth," Jon calls to his grizzled advisor, who approaches with the measured steps of a man reading his commander's mood. "My lord, send a raven to Lord Walder Frey at the Twins. Request audience to discuss terms of reconciliation between House Frey and the king in the north." Garth's weathered features tighten with understanding. He has served great houses long enough to recognize political catastrophe when it presents itself. The boy king has broken his oath. "Love makes fools of even the wisest men," Jon replies with forced calm. But broken oaths can sometimes be mended, given proper consideration and compensation. The journey to the Twins takes 3 days of hard riding, with a small escort of Rose Knights. Jon travels under banners of parley, his diplomatic mission obvious to any who might consider hostile action. Yet he feels the weight of suspicious eyes watching from every shadow as their party approaches the ancient fortress that guards the crossing of the Green Fork. The Twins loom against the grey sky like accusatory fingers pointed at heaven itself. Jon has heard tales of their strategic importance since childhood, but seeing them firsthand drives home their significance. No army crosses the Trident without Lord Walder's permission, making the ancient lord one of the most powerful men in the realm, despite his relatively modest holdings. Walder Frey receives Jon in his great hall, with all the ceremony due a representative of House Tyrell, though his rheumy eyes glitter with barely contained fury. At nearly 90 years old, the Lord of the Twins has outlived most of his contemporaries through a combination of cunning and spite that makes him dangerous to underestimate. "Jon Snow," Walder rasps from his seat beneath banners of blue and silver. "The bastard who commands Rose Knights. How far you have risen from your father's sins." The insult strikes home with practiced precision, but Jon responds with the courtesy that Olenna Tyrell drilled into him during long years of political education. "Lord Walder, House Tyrell sends greetings and hopes for renewed friendship between our houses." "Friendship?" Walder's laugh sounds like grinding stone. "Your precious king broke his word to me. Chose some western whelp over my daughter after swearing sacred oaths. What friendship can survive such betrayal?" Jon had expected this response, preparing arguments during the long ride north. His Grace understands the offense given to House Frey. He seeks to make amends through other means. "What other means?" Walder leans forward with predatory interest. "Gold? Titles? Empty promises of future favor? Marriage between Lord Edmure Tully and one of your daughters. a union that would bind the Riverlands to House Frey through blood rather than mere alliance. The proposal strikes Walder like a physical blow, his eyes widening with genuine surprise. Jon has offered him something beyond his wildest expectations. Marriage into the great house that rules the Riverlands, legitimacy that his family has craved for centuries. Edmure Tully, Walder muses, his anger momentarily replaced by calculation. The heir to Riverrun. That would be acceptable compensation for the slight given my house. Jon feels a moment of relief as negotiations shift from hostile rejection toward potential agreement. Yet something in Walder's manner troubles him, a sense that the old lord's acceptance comes too easily for a man famous for nursing grudges across decades. There would be other considerations as well, Jon continues carefully. Formal pardons for any past grievances, restoration of trading privileges, permanent seats on the King's Council when the war ends. Walder nods slowly, his gnarled fingers drumming against the arms of his chair. Generous terms, perhaps too generous for a broken oath. The words carry subtle menace that raises Jon's instincts like hackles on a wolf's neck. He has learned to read the undercurrents of political conversation, and something about this negotiation feels wrong in ways he cannot identify. Lord Walder, Jon says with careful formality, may I speak freely about the benefits of reconciliation? Speak your peace, bastard. Jon chooses his words like a man walking through a field of hidden traps. The realm bleeds, while great houses pursue private grievances. House Frey has served the Riverlands faithfully for centuries. History will remember those who helped end this war more than those who prolonged it. Walder's smile reveals teeth like yellowed tombstones. History is written by victors, boy. The question becomes which side claims victory when the dust settles. The response sends ice water through Jon's veins. A loyal bannerman would never speak in such terms, weighing allegiances like a merchant, considering profitable investments. Yet Jon maintains his diplomatic composure despite growing alarm. The negotiations continue for 2 days, during which Jon observes the twins' preparations with increasing concern. He sees more men-at-arms than a peaceful lord should need, hears whispered conversations that cease when strangers approach, notices ravens flying at odd hours toward destinations unknown. On the final night of his visit, Jon discovers the truth through an overheard conversation between 2 Frey knights drinking in the castle's depths. The words they speak make his blood run cold with understanding of the betrayal being planned. When the music starts, remember your targets. The king first, then his mother, then any who try to flee. Lord Tywin's gold buys many things, including justice for broken oaths. Jon retreats to his chambers with mind racing through implications and possibilities. The Red Wedding, for that is surely what they plan, will destroy not only Robb, but the entire northern cause. Yet he possesses no proof beyond overheard fragments, nothing that would convince his brother to abandon crucial negotiations. The raven he sends to Olenna flies under cover of darkness, its message carefully coded in language that appears to discuss grain shipments, but actually warns of treachery. If anyone can unravel Tywin Lannister's web of conspiracies, it is the Queen of Thorns with her decades of political experience. Her response arrives within the week, carried by a merchant who claims to seek buyers for Reach wines. The hidden message confirms Jon's worst fears, while providing intelligence that makes his hands shake as he reads it. The old lion roars from his den at Harrenhal. Gold flows north like water, buying sellswords and silence in equal measure. The wedding feast shall indeed be red, but not with wine alone. Trust no one beyond blood, and perhaps not even them. Your roses remain loyal, but thorns grow sharp in dangerous gardens. Jon burns the message immediately, but its words remain seared into his memory like brands of fire. Tywin Lannister has orchestrated the ultimate betrayal, turning Guest right into slaughter through Frey greed and Lannister gold. The war council that follows his return to Riverrun proves an exercise in frustration as Jon struggles to voice warnings without revealing their source. Robb sits at the head of the table, surrounded by his trusted lords, their faces bright with plans for victory and thoughts of ending the war through negotiated settlement. The assault on Casterly Rock must wait, Robb declares with the confidence of youth. Lord Walder's terms seem reasonable given the circumstances. A wedding between Uncle Edmure and Roslyn Frey will heal the breach between our houses. Jon watches his brother speak with growing desperation, seeing doom approach like storm clouds on the horizon. How can he warn of treachery without revealing sources that could endanger everything? How can he convince the king that his greatest victory may become his greatest defeat? Your Grace, Jon says carefully, perhaps additional precautions would be wise. The Freys have reason for resentment, and great feasts can become complicated events. Catelyn Stark looks at Jon with sharp attention, her mother's instincts detecting something in his tone. What concerns you about the wedding? Jon meets her eyes across the table, trying to communicate warnings through glance alone. Only that reconciliation sometimes comes at higher prices than anticipated. Perhaps additional guards, alternative escape routes, contingency plans. You worry too much. Robb laughs with the dismissive confidence of youth. Lord Walder accepted our terms. Honor demands that we trust his word as he trusts ours. The words strike Jon like physical blows, their naive optimism highlighting everything wrong with northern approaches to southern politics. Honor means nothing to men bought with Lannister gold. Yet how can he explain such truths to a brother who still believes in the essential goodness of mankind? The days that follow blur together in a haze of desperate preparation. Jon positions his Rose Knights within easy riding distance of the twins, while maintaining the appearance of routine campaign movements. He drafts coded messages to trusted commanders, prepares supply lines for rapid retreat, and wrestles with the growing certainty that his warnings will prove insufficient. Catelyn seeks him out on the eve of departure, her expression troubled by doubts that mirror his own concerns. They walk along Riverlands' walls in silence before she finally speaks the words weighing on both their minds. You know something, she says without preamble. Something that frightens you more than battle or siege. Jon considers lying, maintaining the diplomatic facade that has served him well throughout these negotiations. Yet maternal intuition deserves honesty from the son she has finally claimed as her own. I know that gold can buy many things, he replies carefully, including the loyalty of men who should know better. Catelyn stops walking and turns to face him with steel in her grey eyes. Speak plainly. What danger threatens my son? The kind that comes from trusting enemies who smile while sharpening their knives, Jon says, with all the urgency he dares display. Please, convince him to bring overwhelming force to this wedding. Make it impossible for treachery to succeed, even if attempted. Catelyn studies his face in the moonlight, reading truths that words cannot convey. You believe the Freys mean to betray us. I believe that desperate men do desperate things when offered sufficient incentive, Jon replies. And Lord Tywin Lannister has incentives to spare. The conversation ends with mutual understanding, though Jon fears it comes too late to prevent catastrophe. Robb has committed to this course with all the stubborn honor that characterizes his bloodline. Convincing him to abandon negotiations would require proof that Jon cannot provide without endangering sources that may prove crucial in the battles ahead. As the Northern Army prepares to march toward the twins, Jon makes his final preparations with the grim efficiency of a man expecting the worst possible outcome. His Rose Knights receive coded orders that will bring them to the battlefield within hours of his signal. Supply trains shift to support rapid movement rather than siege operations. Escape routes are mapped and memorized. The Game of Thrones has claimed many players through the years, but none more cruelly than those who believe honor will protect them from dishonor in others. Jon Snow has learned different lessons in Southern Gardens, understanding that survival sometimes requires abandoning the very principles one seeks to preserve. The Red Wedding approaches like destiny itself, and Jon Snow prepares to face the shadows and betrayals that threaten to destroy everything he holds dear. Whether his preparations will prove sufficient remains to be written in blood and fire at the Twins. War teaches harsh lessons to those who would survive its chaos. Jon Snow has learned them all. But the greatest test of that education lies ahead at a wedding feast, where loyalty dies and treachery reigns supreme. The wolves march toward their doom, but the roses ride close behind, with thorns sharp and ready for the harvest of betrayal that awaits them all. The music begins just after the 7th course, when wine flows freely and northern lords relax their guard in the warmth of Frey hospitality. Jon Snow sits his destrier in the darkness beyond the Twins' walls, 500 rose knights arrayed behind him like shadows waiting for dawn. Through the castle's lit windows, he can hear the minstrels playing songs of love and marriage, their melodies carrying on the cold night air. Something feels wrong. The music changes tempo too suddenly, shifts from celebration to something darker that makes Jon's blood run cold with recognition. This is the signal he has feared since learning of Tywin Lannister's gold and Walder Frey's treachery. "Now," Jon commands with quiet urgency, "ride hard and spare no one who stands between us and the king. 500 lances lower as one, their steel points gleaming in the moonlight like stars fallen to earth. The thunder of hooves drowns out all other sounds as Reach cavalry charges toward the Twins' gates with Jon Snow at their head. The guards at the main entrance die before they can raise the alarm, cut down by Rose Knights who have trained for this moment through months of careful preparation. Jon's sword takes the head from a Frey sergeant who tries to bar their passage, his blade already stained red before they reach the castle's heart. Inside the great hall, the slaughter has begun in earnest. Crossbow bolts fly from hidden galleries into northern lords who believed themselves guests under sacred protection. Steel sings as Frey men-at-arms fall upon their supposed allies with murderous intent. Blood spreads across the rush-strewn floor like spilled wine, dark and terrible in the torchlight. Jon kicks open the hall's great doors just as Robb Stark staggers backward with 3 quarrels sprouting from his chest. The young king in the north looks toward his foster brother, with eyes already glazing over, his mouth moving in words that Jon cannot hear above the chaos. "Robb!" Jon shouts, cutting down a Frey knight who moves to block his path. His blade opens the man from shoulder to hip, painting the stones beneath with crimson proof of his desperation. But he arrives too late to save the brother he has failed to warn. Robb collapses against a feast table, his crown rolling across bloodied stones as life ebbs from his wounds. Jon reaches him in time to catch his final words, whispered with the last breath of a king who died too young. "Protect the family. The North remembers." Jon cradles his brother's body for a moment that feels like forever, grief and rage warring in his heart. Around them, the massacre continues as northern lords fall beneath Frey treachery. Yet Jon's intervention has disrupted the carefully planned slaughter enough to create confusion among the killers. "Lady Catelyn," Jon calls, spotting Robb's mother pressed against a pillar with a crossbow pointed at her heart. The Frey bowman hesitates just long enough for Jon to hurl his dagger with deadly accuracy, the blade taking the man in the throat before he can loose his bolt. Catelyn runs to her fallen son, with tears streaming down her cheeks, her cries of grief cutting through the din of battle like knives through silk. Jon protects them both as more Frey soldiers converge on their position, his sword weaving patterns of death around the dying king and his mourning mother. "We must go," Jon shouts above the chaos. "This hall will be our tomb if we linger." The fighting retreat that follows tests every lesson Jon has learned about warfare and leadership. He rallies the surviving northern lords who still draw breath, organizing them into a defensive formation that can fight its way clear of the killing ground. The blackfish appears at his shoulder, with sword bloody and face grim, the old knight having carved his way through a dozen enemies to reach safety. "How many?" Brynden Tully asks between sword strokes. "Too few," Jon replies grimly, "but more than they intended to leave alive." Maege Mormont fights beside them with the fury of the she-bear that serves as her house's sigil, her axe splitting Frey skulls with mechanical precision. Lady Dacey follows her mother's example, proving that Bear Island breeds warriors regardless of gender. The breakthrough comes when Jon's Rose Knights finally fight their way into the hall proper, their superior training and equipment telling against Frey levies who expected easy slaughter rather than desperate battle. Steel rings on steel as southern finesse meets northern desperation, creating carnage that transforms the wedding feast into charnel house. Grey wind breaks free during the confusion, the great dire wolf's cage shattered by a stray crossbow bolt that Jon redirects with precisely timed swordwork. The beast bounds through the melee with supernatural grace, his massive jaws closing on Frey throats with satisfying finality. "Go!" Jon shouts to the wolf as their eyes meet across the bloody hall. "Run north! Tell them what happened here!" Grey Wind seems to understand, his yellow eyes reflecting intelligence beyond mere animal cunning. The direwolf bounds toward the castle's rear entrance, disappearing into the night to carry word of betrayal to those who can still act upon it. The escape proves as brutal as the initial assault, fought step by step through corridors slick with blood and choked with smoke from overturned torches. Jon leads the survivors with desperate courage, his blade cutting through obstacles both human and architectural as they carve a path toward freedom. They emerge into the courtyard to find it filled with Frey soldiers forming ranks for a final charge. For a moment, victory seems impossible as overwhelming numbers prepare to crush the handful of survivors who have fought so hard to escape the Hall of Slaughter. Then horns sound in the darkness beyond the walls, and banners bearing the Golden Rose appear at the Twins' gates. Garland Tyrell leads a relief force of 2,000 men, their arrival timed perfectly to catch the Freys between hammer and anvil. The battle that follows proves mercifully brief, as Reach discipline overwhelms Frey treachery. "My lord!" Sir Garth Hightower calls as he rides into the courtyard with blood on his sword and satisfaction in his voice. "We came as quickly as we could when the signal fires lit." Jon nods gratefully, too exhausted for proper thanks, as adrenaline fades and grief takes its place. Around him, the survivors count their losses with hollow eyes and trembling hands. Too many good men lie dead in the hall behind them, their blood the price of trusting enemies who smile while sharpening their knives. The aftermath proves as complex as the battle itself. Jon establishes a command post in Riverrun's Great Hall, where maps and messages cover every surface as he attempts to salvage something from the disaster. Ravens fly in all directions, carrying word of the massacre, while surviving northern lords gather to mourn their king and plan their response. Catelyn sits beside the bier where Robb's body lies in state, her grief a terrible thing to witness. Yet she shows remarkable strength in the face of catastrophe, her voice steady as she addresses the assembled lords about their future course. "My son is dead," she says, with quiet dignity. "But his cause lives on in those who survived this night. The North remembers, and the North endures." Jon stands at her right hand throughout the ceremony, his presence a reminder that not all hope has died with the young king. When she speaks the words that change everything, her voice carries across the hall with maternal authority that none dare question. Jon Snow has proven himself more than worthy of the name he bears. From this day forth, I claim him as my true-born son, heir to all the love and loyalty I should have shown him from birth. The formal adoption creates ripples throughout the northern hierarchy, transforming Jon's status from valuable ally to potential claimant in a single stroke. Yet he accepts the honor with humility rather than ambition, understanding that such recognition comes with responsibilities that weigh heavier than any crown. The letter Jon writes to Highgarden that night reflects the complexity of their situation with careful diplomatic language that conceals as much as it reveals. He informs Lord Mace of the catastrophe, while requesting continued support for the Northern cause, though what form that cause might take remains unclear. The alliance between our houses has been tested by fire and proven true, he writes with a steady hand, despite his exhaustion. The roses and wolves stand together still, though darkness has fallen upon both our realms. Your continued friendship in these trials will be remembered when lighter days return. The response arrives within the fortnight, carried by a raven bearing Olenna Tyrrell's personal seal. Her words offer both comfort and warning in equal measure, reflecting political realities that Jon must now navigate as a leader rather than merely a commander. Roses bloom even in winter when tended with proper care. Your thorns have proven sharp enough to draw Lannister blood, which earns respect in gardens where strength matters more than sentiment. The golden rose supports its allies through all seasons, though wise gardeners adapt their methods to changing weather. The coded message makes clear that House Tyrell will continue supporting the Northern cause, though their methods may evolve as circumstances demand. Jon understands the wisdom behind such flexibility, having learned from Olenna herself that survival requires adaptation rather than stubborn adherence to failing strategies. In the days that follow, Jon works tirelessly to establish a government in exile for the Northern remnant. Riverrun becomes the seat of resistance against Lannister rule, its ancient walls sheltering those who refuse to bend the knee to usurpers and kinslayers. The task proves monumental, requiring diplomatic skills that his fostering at Highgarden has provided in abundance. Mage Mormont proves invaluable in these efforts, her blunt honesty cutting through political niceties to address practical concerns about feeding, arming, and organizing the survivors. The Blackfish contributes military expertise gleaned from decades of warfare, while Catelyn's presence lends legitimacy to decisions that might otherwise be questioned. "What do we do now?" Daisy Mormont asks during one of their late-night planning sessions. "The king is dead, the Northern army scattered. How do we continue the fight?" Jon considers the question carefully before answering, understanding that his words will shape the future course of their rebellion. "We do what Starks have always done. We endure, we remember, and we make our enemies pay for every drop of blood they have spilled." The promise rings with determination that helps lift spirits dampened by recent catastrophe. Yet Jon also understands the enormous challenges that lie ahead, fighting a war against enemies who command vastly superior resources, while his own forces dwindle with each passing day. The Red Wedding has claimed its victims, but it has also created something new in the ashes of the old. Jon Snow, no longer bastard but acknowledged son, stands ready to lead the Northern cause through the darkness ahead. Whether that leadership will prove sufficient to achieve victory remains unwritten. But one truth stands certain as winter deepens around them. The wolves may be blooded, but they are not broken. And with roses blooming beside them in defiance of the season, they will continue the fight until justice is served and honor restored to the Seven Kingdoms. The Game of Thrones has claimed another king, but Jon Snow remains on the board with pieces enough to continue playing. What moves he makes in the endgame ahead will determine whether the North rises again or falls forever into darkness. Blood and roses mark the battlefield where loyalties are tested and new alliances forged in the crucible of shared suffering. From such trials emerge the leaders who will shape the realm's future, for good or ill. The raven from Braavos arrives on wings black as midnight, bearing news that chills even the warmest halls of Riverrun. Jon Snow reads the merchant's report twice before setting it aside with hands that tremble slightly, despite his efforts at control. Dragons live again in the world, 3 beasts of legend hatched in fire and blood by a silver-haired girl who claims the name Targaryen. Daenerys Stormborn, last daughter of the Mad King, has conquered Slaver's Bay with foreign armies and creatures from the dawn of time. Her dragons grow larger with each passing moon, while her Dothraki followers multiply like summer grass after spring rain. Soon she will look west, toward the Seven Kingdoms, with conquest burning in her violet eyes. Another claimant to the throne, Catelyn observes, as she studies the intelligence reports spread across Riverrun's war table. As if the realm did not have kings enough already. Jon nods grimly, his mind already working through the implications of dragons returning to Westeros. The political landscape, complex enough with 3 kings vying for power, becomes impossibly tangled with the addition of a 4th claimant, backed by legendary beasts. She commands substantial forces, he notes, pointing to estimates of Dothraki numbers. 40,000 screamers, plus unsullied spearmen and sellsword companies. Even without dragons, such an army could reshape the balance of power. The northern lords gathered in council exchange uneasy glances at this assessment. They have learned to trust Jon's strategic insights during the dark months since the Red Wedding. But the prospect of facing dragons tests even their hard-won confidence. "What do you counsel?" Maege Mormont asks with characteristic directness. "Do we seek alliance with this dragon queen, or prepare to fight her alongside our other enemies?" Before Jon can answer, the sound of hooves in the courtyard announces new arrivals. He looks through the window to see Tyrell banners approaching, their golden roses bright against the grey autumn sky. At their head rides a figure whose beauty would stop traffic in the streets of King's Landing. Margaery Tyrell enters Riverrun's great hall, like a queen claiming her throne, her escort of rose knights, creating a corridor of steel and silk that speaks to House Tyrell's enduring power. At 16, she has blossomed into the legendary beauty that songs will celebrate for generations, yet her green eyes hold intelligence that makes her far more dangerous than mere prettiness could suggest. "Jon," she says with warmth that brightens the gloomy hall, "I have missed you terribly since the war began." Their embrace carries genuine affection, despite the political calculations that brought her north. Jon has always treasured his friendship with Margaery, finding in her a kindred spirit who understands the complex currents of power and loyalty that shape their world. "What brings you so far from Highgarden?" Jon asks, though he suspects he already knows the answer. "The same forces that brought dragons back to life," Margaery replies with a smile that would melt ice. "Change comes whether we will it or not. The wise adapt their plans accordingly." The private audience that follows reveals the true scope of Tyrell concerns about the shifting political landscape. Margaery speaks with authority beyond her years about dragons and alliances, trade routes and military preparations, as if she has spent months planning for this exact conversation. "Grandmother believes the realm stands on the edge of transformation," she explains as they walk through Riverrun's Godswood. "The old order crumbles, while new powers rise from across the narrow sea. Those who choose the winning side will prosper. Those who choose poorly will be destroyed." Jon listens carefully, understanding that House Tyrell has always excelled at backing winners while maintaining flexibility to change allegiances when circumstances demand. Their survival through centuries of dynastic upheaval proves the wisdom of such approaches. "What does Lady Olenna counsel?" Jon inquires. Margaery's smile becomes predatory in ways that remind him powerfully of her grandmother. That strong alliances require strong foundations. Blood bonds prove more durable than mere friendship when storms threaten the realm. The proposal, when it comes, surprises Jon with its directness, despite his growing suspicions about Margaery's true purpose. She offers herself in marriage with the same casual confidence that other women might suggest a walk in the garden. "Our houses have been allies through friendship and mutual interest," she continues without pause. "Marriage would transform that alliance into something permanent, binding our fates together, regardless of which kings rise or fall." Jon considers the offer, with the careful calculation that his fostering at Highgarden has taught him. Politically, the match makes perfect sense, uniting northern legitimacy with southern wealth in ways that could challenge any rival claimant. Personally, the prospect pleases him more than he cares to admit. "You honor me with such a proposal," he replies formally. "But I remain a bastard, regardless of Lady Catelyn's recognition. Would House Tyrell truly bind itself to such uncertain bloodlines?" Margaery's laughter carries musical notes that transform the Godswood into something approaching paradise. "Oh, Jon, you still understand so little about your own worth." Before he can ask what she means, another visitor arrives with news that will reshape everything Jon believes about himself. Sam Tarly approaches through the trees with obvious nervousness, his master's chain catching light as he walks. Behind him comes a figure that Jon recognizes despite years of separation. Maester Aemon from Castle Black, ancient and blind, but radiating wisdom that transcends physical limitations. "Jon," Sam says, with the breathless excitement of a scholar who has made an incredible discovery, "I bring word from the Citadel that will change everything." The revelation unfolds in Riverlands solar as the sun sets over the western hills, casting long shadows across walls that have sheltered Tully lords for centuries. Sam spreads parchments across the table with shaking hands, his findings meticulously documented in the flowing script of scholarly research. "I found the records," Sam explains, as Jon examines documents that speak to legitimacy beyond his wildest dreams. Prince Rhaegar's marriage to Lyanna Stark, performed in secret by a Septon of the Faith. You are not Ned Stark's bastard, Jon. You are Rhaegar Targaryen's true-born son. The words strike Jon like physical blows, each revelation reshaping his understanding of identity and purpose. Everything he has believed about himself proves false, replaced by truths that carry implications too vast to immediately comprehend. Maester Aemon speaks for the first time since arriving, his voice carrying the weight of decades spent serving House Targaryen. "I suspected, from the moment I met you at Castle Black, though I lacked proof to confirm my suspicions. Your father was my grandnephew, a prince whose death I mourned along with all his lineage." Jon stares at the ancient Maester with growing comprehension. If Aemon speaks truly, then Jon possesses a claim to the Iron Throne that supersedes all others, currently pressing their cases through warfare and politics. "This changes nothing," Jon says finally, though his voice lacks conviction. "I am still the same person who stood beside Robb at the Red Wedding." "It changes everything," Margaery corrects gently. "You are no longer Jon Snow the bastard, or even Jon Stark, the acknowledged son. You are Jon Targaryen, rightful heir to the Iron Throne by every law of succession known to the Seven Kingdoms." The political implications cascade through Jon's mind like avalanche stones gathering momentum. His marriage to Margaery would unite the ancient bloodline of dragons with the current power of roses, creating a coalition that could challenge any rival claimant. Yet such recognition also makes him a target for enemies who prefer the current chaos to legitimate rule. "What of Daenerys?" Jon asks, grasping for practical concerns amid the whirlwind of genealogical revelation. She will not welcome a rival with stronger claims to her family's legacy. Sam produces another document, this one bearing the seal of the Faith Militant from decades past. According to Targaryen succession law, the throne passes through the male line when possible. As Rhaegar's son, your claim supersedes that of his sister. Jon sits heavily in a chair that suddenly feels like a throne, the weight of destiny settling around his shoulders like a cloak of lead. The bastard boy who came south, seeking only safety, has become the rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms, though whether that recognition will prove blessing or curse remains unclear. Olenna Tyrell arrives the next morning, as if summoned by some supernatural awareness of momentous events. The Queen of Thorns enters the solar with her customary sharp smile, surveying the assembled documents and revelations with satisfaction that suggests she has known these truths for years. "So," she says, without preamble, "the bastard rose proves to be a hidden dragon. How delightfully appropriate for these interesting times." Jon looks at her with growing understanding. "You knew." "I suspected," Olenna corrects with characteristic precision. "Your resemblance to Rhaegar became more pronounced with age, while your complete lack of resemblance to Ned Stark grew correspondingly obvious. A woman who has observed the Game of Thrones for 7 decades learns to recognize hidden bloodlines." The admission explains much about House Tyrell's investment in Jon's education and advancement. They have not simply fostered a northern bastard from charitable impulses, but cultivated a potential king who could serve their long-term interests. "What do you counsel now?" Jon asks, understanding that his next decisions will determine the fate of kingdoms. Olenna's smile grows sharper still. "That you marry my granddaughter immediately, and begin planning how to claim your birthright before others decide to claim it for themselves. Dragons may be impressive, but roses have deeper roots in Westerosi soil." The wedding plans begin that very afternoon, setting in motion events that will transform the political landscape of the Seven Kingdoms. Jon accepts the necessity of immediate action, despite his emotional reservations, understanding that delay serves only his enemies' interests. Yet as ravens fly forth, bearing invitations to a royal wedding, other intelligence arrives that complicates their calculations. Daenerys Targaryen has begun moving her armies toward the Narrow Sea, her dragons grown large enough to carry riders into battle. The dragon's shadow falls across Westeros at last, promising fire and blood to all who would oppose her claim. "We must move quickly," Jon tells his assembled advisors as they plan for the trials ahead. "A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand against external threats. The North and Reach must unite completely before the dragons arrive." The task seems impossible given the forces arrayed against them. Yet Jon has learned that impossible goals sometimes yield to determined effort guided by political wisdom. His education at Highgarden has prepared him for exactly such challenges, though the stakes have risen beyond anything his tutors could have imagined. As autumn deepens toward winter, Jon Targaryen prepares to claim his birthright through marriage and alliance rather than conquest and destruction. Whether such methods will prove sufficient against dragons and Dothraki remains to be written in the blood of battles yet to come. The Game of Thrones has gained its most dangerous player, though Jon himself remains uncertain whether he plays to win the crown or simply to survive the storms gathering on every horizon. In either case, the roses and the hidden dragon stand together against all who would deny them their rightful places in the realm's future. War comes to Westeros on wings of fire, but Jon Targaryen will meet it with steel forged in northern honor and southern cunning. What emerges from such a collision will determine whether the Seven Kingdoms endure or burn in the flames of competing ambitions. The dragons come with the dawn, their shadows falling across King's Landing like harbingers of ancient prophecy. Jon Targaryen stands on the walls of the Red Keep, watching as 3 winged beasts circle the capital with fire burning in their throats. Beside him, Margaery adjusts her crown of golden roses, her beauty undiminished by the steel corselet she wears beneath silk and velvet. Their wedding 3 moons past has transformed the political landscape of Westeros beyond recognition. The marriage of the rightful Dragon King to the Queen of Roses has drawn allies from every corner of the realm, creating the largest coalition assembled since Robert's Rebellion. Northern loyalists stand beside Reach Knights, while Dornish spears glitter in the morning sun next to Vale Heavy Horse. Even the Iron Islands have sent longships to support the cause of legitimate rule. She comes with fire and blood, Margaery observes, as the largest dragon, Black Drogon, releases a gout of flame that turns morning mist to steam. But we meet her with ice and roses. Jon nods grimly, his hand resting on the pommel of Longclaw as he studies the invasion force spreading across Blackwater Bay. 300 ships bear the dragon banners of Daenerys Targaryen, their hulls black against the water as they disgorge Dothraki horsemen, unsullied spearmen, and sellsword companies onto the beaches below Dragonstone. The reports from his spies confirm what Jon has feared since learning of his aunt's approach. Daenerys commands overwhelming military strength, her armies numbering near 60,000 veterans hardened by conquest across Essos. Yet numbers alone will not determine the outcome of this confrontation. The Game of Thrones rewards those who understand its deeper currents, and Jon has learned to navigate such waters with skill inherited from both bloodlines. A raven arrives, bearing Tyrion Lannister's seal, the dwarf's familiar wit evident even in formal diplomatic correspondence. The message requests parley under banners of truce, offering terms that might avoid the destruction of King's Landing. Jon reads the proposal twice before responding with characteristic directness. Tell Lord Tyrion that Jon Targaryen will meet with Daenerys Stormborn at the Dragon Pit, as befits a discussion between monarchs. Let us see what words can accomplish before resorting to steel. The meeting that follows proves as dramatic as Jon anticipated. Two dragons of different breeding facing each other across stone seats that once held the skulls of their ancestors. Daenerys enters the ruined amphitheatre with all the majesty that legends ascribe to her bloodline, silver-gold hair flowing like molten metal beneath a crown of black iron and rubies. "Nephew," she says, with a voice that carries music and menace in equal measure. "You have grown into quite the king since I last heard tell of Ned Stark's bastard." Jon responds with courtesy learned at Highgarden, though his grey eyes remain cold as winter stone. "Aunt, your reputation precedes you across the narrow sea. The mother of dragons has become the stuff of songs and nightmares alike." Tyrion steps between them, with the diplomatic skill that has served him well through years of navigating royal temperaments. "Perhaps we might discuss terms that would benefit all concerned parties. The realm has bled enough these past years." The negotiations prove brief and ultimately futile. Daenerys offers to legitimize Jon as Lord of Winterfell in exchange for acknowledging her claim to the Iron Throne. Jon counters by proposing that she accept the title of Princess of Dragonstone while he rules as rightful king by law and birth. Neither yields, and both understand that words have failed before the first sword is drawn. "You would deny your own blood?" Daenerys asks with genuine puzzlement. "We are the last Targaryens, nephew. Together we could restore our house to its rightful glory." Jon considers his response carefully, weighing honor against political necessity, as Olenna Tyrell taught him during long years of education. "I learned different lessons about family loyalty, Aunt. Sometimes protection requires difficult choices." The battle that follows will be remembered as the Dance of Dragons Reborn, though this time roses fight beside ice against fire and foreign conquest. Jon leads the combined armies from the center, his banner displaying both the direwolf of Stark and the three-headed dragon of Targaryen in a heraldic statement that few can ignore. Daenerys answers with fire made flesh, her three dragons diving from the sky like comets of destruction. Drogon's flames turn the first rank of Dornish spears to ash and bone, while Viserion and Rhaegal strafe the flanks with death that falls from above like burning rain. The dragon fire seems unstoppable until Jon unveils the great ballista that Qyburn designed before his death, a siege engine capable of launching steel bolts the size of spears with enough force to pierce even dragon scales. Jon himself takes position at the weapon, his steady aim trained on Drogon as the great beast swoops toward the allied formations. The bolt takes the dragon in the left wing, its steel point punching through membrane and bone with a sound like thunder. Drogon shrieks in pain and fury, his flight becoming erratic as black blood spatters the battlefield below. Daenerys struggles to maintain control as her mount staggers through the air, seeking safe landing amid the chaos of clashing armies. "Now!" Jon shouts to his commanders, "while they are grounded!" The charge that follows brings together all the military traditions of Westeros in a single devastating assault. Northern cavalry thunders into Dothraki, screaming their foreign war cries, while Reach heavy horse crashes through unsullied formations that have never faced proper knights. From the flanks, Dornish light horse and Vale, mounted archers add their strength to the coalition assault. Tyrion attempts one final negotiation as the battle rages around them, approaching Jon under a banner of parley while armies clash in every direction. The dwarf's words carry desperate sincerity as he pleads for an end to the destruction. "You are both Targaryens," he argues over the din of battle. "Both have legitimate claims. Both have proven themselves in war and rule. Surely some accommodation can be reached that preserves the realm and both your houses." Jon meets his eyes with sympathy that carries its own sadness. "You speak wisdom, Lord Tyrion, but some choices cannot be unmade through clever words. She comes with fire and foreign armies to claim a throne that is not hers by right. I cannot allow that, regardless of blood shared between us." The personal confrontation comes when Daenerys, dismounted from her wounded dragon, seeks Jon through the press of battle. They meet in a circle cleared by fallen bodies, two young rulers whose claims have divided the realm between them. Steel rings against steel as they duel with all the skill and desperation that royal blood can inspire. "You could have been my king," Daenerys pants between sword strokes, her blade weaving patterns of deadly beauty. "Together we could have ruled justly and wisely." Jon parries her thrust and responds with his own attack, driven by duty rather than hatred. Justice comes from right action, not right blood. The realm needs healing, not conquest. The duel continues as their armies clash around them, neither able to gain decisive advantage over the other. Yet gradually the tide of battle shifts as political alliances prove their worth over military strength alone. Lord Royce arrives with the Knights of the Vale, their charge breaking the unsullied squares that had held firm against previous assaults. Prince Oberyn's brother, Prince Doran, brings the full strength of Dorne to the field, his spears driving deep into the Dothraki flanks. Most crucially, the common folk of King's Landing rise in support of Jon's cause, recognizing in him the legitimate king they have long awaited. The city militia opens the gates from within, allowing Jon's forces to pour through the defenses, while trapping Daenerys' army between hammer and anvil. Faced with overwhelming opposition and dwindling options, Daenerys finally yields to political reality. Her surrender comes not through military defeat, but through recognition that the realm has chosen its king through alliance rather than conquest. "I offer you the same choice you offered me," Jon says, as he helps her to her feet. "Life and exile, or death and martyrdom. Choose wisely, Aunt." Daenerys looks around at the battlefield where her dreams of conquest have died, understanding that fire and blood alone cannot claim a throne that belongs to another by right and recognition. Her nod carries dignity despite defeat, acceptance of terms more generous than those she might have offered in victory. "I choose exile," she says quietly. "The dragons will fly east again, to lands that welcome their return." The aftermath proves as important as the battle itself. Jon's treatment of his defeated aunt becomes legend throughout the realm, showing the mercy that true kings extend to fallen enemies. He provides ships for her departure, escorts to ensure safe passage, and promises that she will always be welcome should she choose to return in peace. Tyrion remains behind, recognizing in Jon the qualities that might heal a realm torn by decades of warfare. His experience with royal administration proves valuable as they begin the work of restoration and reconciliation that must follow victory. "You showed wisdom beyond your years," Tyrion observes, as they watch Daenerys' ships disappear beyond the horizon. Few kings would spare an enemy who could return with dragons. Jon's response carries the northern honor and southern wisdom that have shaped his character. Fear is no foundation for lasting rule. Better to show mercy and accept the risks than build a crown on cruelty. The victory celebration that follows brings together all the diverse forces that made triumph possible. In the great hall of the Red Keep, northern lords share wine with Dornish princes, while Reach knights exchange stories with Vale men-at-arms. The alliance that began with Jon's fostering at Highgarden has grown to encompass the entire realm, united in common cause. Margaery stands beside her husband as he accepts the formal submission of lords who fought against him, her presence lending grace to what could have been a harsh reckoning. Together they embody the union of ice and roses that has remade the political landscape of Westeros. "What comes next?" she asks as the celebrations wind down toward dawn. Jon looks out over the capital that has finally accepted its rightful king, understanding that victory in war marks only the beginning of the greater challenges that peace will bring. Now we rule. Now we prove that all this bloodshed served some purpose greater than ambition. The dragons have departed on western winds, taking fire and blood with them to distant shores. In their wake remains a realm united under a king who learned to balance honor with wisdom, mercy with strength. The Game of Thrones has ended, with ice and roses triumphant, though what grows from such victory remains unwritten in the annals of history. Jon Targaryen, first of his name, King of the Andals the Rhoynar, and the first men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm, has claimed his birthright through alliance rather than conquest. Whether such methods will prove more lasting than traditional approaches, only time will reveal. For now, the realm rests in peace for the first time in living memory, protected by a king who understands that true strength comes not from dragons or armies, but from the loyalty freely given by those who recognize justice when they see it. The fire and ice have found their balance at last, and all the Seven Kingdoms are the better for it. The coronation takes place in the ruins of the Dragon Pit, where the bones of ancient kings once rested in glory before falling to rebellion and time. Jon Targaryen stands before the assembled lords of Westeros as the High Septon raises a crown of black iron and rubies, its weight significant beyond mere metal and stone. Around him, banners of every great house flutter in the spring breeze that carries promises of renewal after years of war and winter. Will you solemnly promise and swear to govern the people of the Seven Kingdoms according to their respective laws and customs? The High Septon intones, with words unchanged since Aegon the Conqueror first claimed dominion over the realm. "I solemnly promise so to do," Jon replies with conviction that carries across the gathered multitude. The crown settles upon his brow with surprising lightness, though Jon knows the responsibilities it represents will weigh heavier than any physical burden. At 17, he has become the youngest king in Westerosi history, yet his face shows wisdom earned through trials that would break lesser men. Margaery stands beside him in a gown of cloth of gold that rivals the sun itself, her beauty enhanced by the satisfaction of seeing years of careful planning reach their intended fruition. When the crowd proclaims them king and queen of the Seven Kingdoms, Her smile could illuminate the darkest winter night. The transformation of governance begins immediately, as Jon implements reforms that reflect both his northern upbringing and southern education. The Iron Throne, that twisted monument to conquest through fire and blood, disappears in the flames of dragon fire that once forged it. In its place rises a circular council chamber, where representatives from every kingdom gather as equals rather than supplicants. The realm has suffered too long under the rule of fear, Jon declares during his first address to the new royal council. We will govern through consensus and wisdom, rather than tyranny and caprice. Lord Tyrion Lannister, retained as Hand of the King despite his family's opposition to Jon's cause, nods approvingly at this approach. His experience with royal administration proves invaluable as they navigate the complexities of post-war reconstruction. Your Grace speaks wisdom. Tyrion agrees with characteristic wit. Though I suspect governing through consensus will prove more challenging than conquering through alliance. The months that follow validate both the wisdom and difficulty of Jon's approach. The kingdom requires massive investment to repair the damage inflicted by years of warfare, a task that strains even House Tyrell's legendary wealth. Yet Margaery proves herself more than equal to such challenges, deploying resources with strategic precision that would impress the most seasoned general. Roads rebuild themselves under her direction, connecting regions that war had isolated from each other. Granaries fill with grain from the Reach, while northern timber flows south to replace structures lost to fire and siege. Trade routes reopen as merchants discover that the new regime protects commerce rather than preying upon it. The Queen possesses a gift for administration that borders on the supernatural, Lord Royce observes during one council session. The Vale's roads have never been in finer condition. Jon watches his wife work with pride that goes beyond political calculation. Margaery has grown into the role of queen as if born to it, her natural charisma and political intelligence serving the realm's needs perfectly. Together they form a partnership that balances his northern honor with her southern sophistication. The return of his surviving siblings provides Jon with personal joy that transcends even the satisfaction of successful rule. Sansa arrives from the Vale, where she has been fostered under Lord Arryn's protection, her beauty now matched by a political acumen that rivals Olenna Tyrell herself. At 14, she has learned to navigate court intrigue with skill that suggests a bright future in royal service. "Jon," she says during their reunion, tears streaming down her cheeks as they embrace. "When we heard you were bastard no longer, but a true king, it seemed like a dream too wonderful for waking." Arya's return proves more dramatic, the girl appearing in the throne room like a ghost materialized from shadow. At 11 years old, she moves with deadly grace, learned in the fighting pits of Braavos, her skill with needle and blade shocking even to those who remember her tomboyish youth. "I heard you needed a bodyguard," she announces with a grin that transforms her serious features. "The Faceless Men taught me skills that might prove useful. But it is Bran's arrival that truly demonstrates how much the world has changed during the years of war and separation. The boy who fell from a tower in what seems like another lifetime now possesses abilities that transcend normal human understanding. His eyes hold knowledge of past and future that makes seasoned lords uncomfortable in his presence. The three-eyed raven sees all that was and all that will be, he tells Jon during their private reunion. Your fostering at Highgarden was no accident, brother. The roses were always meant to bloom beside the dragon. Jon studies his youngest brother with amazement, tinged by sorrow for the childhood lost to supernatural purpose. Yet he also recognizes the value of Bran's gifts in governing a realm that contains mysteries beyond mortal comprehension. The council chamber that replaces the Iron Throne becomes a symbol of the new order Jon establishes throughout the Seven Kingdoms. Representatives from every region gather monthly to discuss issues affecting their people, their voices heard regardless of the size or wealth of their holdings. The Dornish speak as equals with the Northmen, while Ironborn captains share counsel with Reach lords. This is what the realm should have been from the beginning, Olenna Tyrell observes as she takes her place as Jon's chief advisor. Rule by consent rather than conquest, wisdom rather than fear. At 60, the Queen of Thorns has lost none of her political sharpness, her advice proving invaluable as Jon navigates the complex process of healing a wounded kingdom. Her experience with the Game of Thrones serves as a counterbalance to his idealistic impulses, tempering noble intentions with practical reality. "You have accomplished something remarkable," she tells him during one of their strategic discussions. "The realm accepts your rule, not because you conquered them, but because they chose you. Such loyalty runs deeper than any forged through fear. The transformation extends beyond mere governance to touch every aspect of Westerosi society. Jon's bastard origins, rather than hindering his rule, become a source of strength that connects him to common folk in ways previous monarchs never achieved. They see in him a king who rose through merit rather than birthright alone, proof that virtue can overcome the circumstances of birth. He understands our struggles," a King's Landing blacksmith tells his customers, as news of royal reform spreads through the capital. "Born low, but risen high through his own worth. That's a king who'll remember where he came from." Such sentiment proves widespread throughout the realm, creating genuine loyalty that no amount of gold or threats could purchase. Jon's reputation for justice and mercy spreads with every royal decree, building foundations for lasting peace that previous dynasties never achieved. The news that will crown all these achievements arrives on a spring morning when cherry blossoms bloom in the Red Keep's gardens. Margaery summons Jon to their private chambers with a smile that outshines the sunrise itself, her hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a child," she announces with joy that transforms her already radiant beauty into something approaching divine. Jon sweeps her into his arms with delight that makes him forget every care of kingship for one perfect moment. Their child will symbolize the union of ice and roses, north and south, bastard blood, and royal lineage. In this new life lies the future of their carefully constructed realm. "A prince or princess born to united kingdoms," Jon murmurs against her hair. "The first royal child in living memory, who will grow up knowing peace instead of war." The birth itself becomes a celebration that encompasses the entire realm. Lords journey from every corner of Westeros to witness the arrival of the heir who represents hope for lasting stability. When the child emerges healthy and strong, bearing features that blend Targaryen silver with Tyrell brown, the kingdom rejoices as if the gods themselves have blessed their union. Jon holds his son for the first time as autumn light filters through the nursery windows, understanding that this moment marks the true beginning of his dynasty. The boy will grow up in a realm shaped by different principles than those that governed previous generations, inheriting a crown built on consent rather than conquest. "What shall we name him?" Margaery asks with exhaustion that cannot diminish her radiance. Jon considers the question carefully, weighing the political implications of names that carry historical significance. Yet in the end, he chooses simplicity over symbolism. "Eddard," he says quietly, "for the man who taught me that honor matters more than advantage." Margaery nods approvingly, understanding the tribute to the father who shaped Jon's character, despite their lack of blood relation. The name will serve as a reminder that true nobility comes from actions rather than ancestry. As the years pass, the wisdom of Jon's fostering at Highgarden becomes increasingly apparent. The lessons learned in Southern Gardens have equipped him to bridge the cultural divides that once seemed insurmountable. Northern honor guides his conscience, while Southern sophistication informs his methods, creating a synthesis that serves the realm's needs perfectly. The kingdom prospers under this balanced approach, trade flourishing between regions that once regarded each other with suspicion and hostility. The Dornish send wine north, while the Reach provides grain to the Iron Islands in exchange for protection of merchant vessels. Unity replaces division as the defining characteristic of Westerosi politics. On winter evenings, when snow falls gently outside the Red Keep's windows, Jon sits with his growing family before a fire that warms more than just their bodies. Margaery reads to their children while he reviews reports from across the realm, their domestic contentment a stark contrast to the chaos that once characterized royal households. "Do you ever regret it?" Margaery asks one such evening, her voice soft with curious affection. "The path that brought you from Winterfell's bastard to the Seven Kingdoms' king?" Jon considers the question while watching their son play with wooden toys carved in the shapes of roses and wolves. The journey has indeed been long and often painful, marked by losses that still ache despite the passage of time. Yet he cannot imagine a different course that would have served the realm better. "No regrets," he answers honestly. "Every choice led to this moment, to this peace. The roses taught me to grow strong, and the realm is stronger for that lesson." The fire crackles in comfortable silence as they contemplate the future stretching ahead like an unwritten book. Outside, the capital sleeps peacefully under its blanket of snow, protected by a king whose unique upbringing has prepared him for exactly these challenges. The bastard who came south, seeking only safety, has become the monarch who united a fractured realm through wisdom rather than warfare. In the gardens of Highgarden, a northern wolf learned to bloom among southern roses, creating a hybrid that proved stronger than either pure strain alone. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. April 22nd, 2026, 8:04:35. Glob. Pattern. /projects/Game of Thrones. What if /star. April 22nd, 2026, 8:04:37. Glob. Pattern. */*. April 22nd, 2026, 8:04:39. Red. File_path. /users /shadow /desktop /compiled binaries /Claude code. Generation 2 /output files /Game of Thrones. What if -2 hours -12 characters /video #3 script xgy /project guide Game of Thrones what if v1.json April 22nd, 2026, 8:04:43. Red. File_path. /users /shadow /desktop compiled binaries /Claude code. Generation 2 /output files /Game of Thrones. What if -2 hours -12 characters /video number 3 script xgy /titles.txt April 22nd, 2026, 8:04:49. Tool search. Query. Select web search. max_results. 1. April 22nd, 2026, 8:05:02. Web search. Query. Game of Thrones. Jon Snow age. Timeline. Robert Baratheon reign. Ned Stark fostering. April 22nd, 2026, 8:05:15. Web search. Query. Tyrell family Highgarden. Game of Thrones fostering traditions. Noble houses. ASOIAF timeline. April 22nd, 2026, 8:05:28. Web search, What query? Mace Tyrell, Olenna Tyrell, Margaery Tyrell, Loras Tyrell. Ages timeline, Robert Baratheon. Reign 283 to 298, AC. April 22nd, 2026, 8:07:23. Right, file_path. C:\users, /shadow, /desktop, /compiled binaries, /Claude code, generation vi, 2, /output files, /Game of Thrones. What if? 2 hours, 12 characters, /. Video number 3, script xgy, /outline.md, content. What if Ned Stark sent Jon Snow to foster, with the Tyrells at Highgarden, divergence point, 285 AC, 2 years, April 22nd, 2026, 8:08:54. Right, file_path, C:\users, /shadow, /desktop, /compiled binaries, /Claude code, generation 5, 2 /output files, /Game of Thrones. What if 2 hours 12 characters, video number 3, script xgy, chapter1.txt, content. What if Ned Stark sent Jon Snow to foster with the Tyrells at Highgarden? Let's explore the depths of it in the VI. April 22nd, 2026, 8:10:34. Right. File_path. C:\users, /shadow, /desktop, /compiled binaries, /Claude code, generation by 2 /output files, /Game of Thrones. What if? 2 hours, 12 characters, video number 3, script xgy, chapter2.txt, content. The morning sun breaks cold over Winterfell's walls as Jon Snow stands in the courtyard, his small hands clutching. April 22nd, 2026, 8:12:30. Right, file_path, C:\users, /shadow, desktop, compiled binaries, /Claude code, generation vi, 2, /output files, Game of Thrones. What if? 2 hours, 12 chapters, video number 3, script xgy, chapter3.txt, content. 3 years pass like seasons at Highgarden, each bringing new growth to the boy who came south as a bastard of Thor. This April 22nd, 2026, 8:14:28. Right, file_path, C:\users, /shadow, desktop, compiled binaries, /Claude code, generation vi, 2 /output files, Game of Thrones. What if 2 hours 12 characters, video number 3, script xgy, chapter4.txt, content. The tournament field at Old Town blazes with banners and bright pavilions as lords from across the Reach gather to April 22nd, 2026, 8:16:35. Right, file path, C. Users, shadow, desktop, compiled binaries, Claude code, generation, V2 output files, war Game of Thrones. What if? 2 hours, 12 characters, video to 3, script xgy, chapter5.txt, content. The Great Hall of Highgarden rings with the clash of steel as Jon Snow faces 3 opponents in the morning melee. April 22nd, 2026, 8:18:47. Right, file_path, C:\users, /shadow, desktop, compiled binaries, /Claude code, generation 5, 2 /output files, Game of Thrones. What if? 2 hours, 12 chapters, video number 3, script xgy, chapter 6, Highgarden.txt. Content. The Raven arrives at Highgarden on a morning when spring roses bloom in defiance of gathering political storms. Joe, April 22nd, 2026, 8:21:13. Right. File_path. C:/users /shadow /desktop /compiled binaries /Claude code generation via 2 /output files /Game of Thrones. What if? 2 hours, 12 chapters /. Video number 3, script xgy /chapter 7.txt. Content. The host of Highgarden rides north through the green hills of the Reach like a golden tide of war. 5000 C, April 22nd, 2026, 8:23:31. Right. File_path. C:/users /shadow /desktop /compiled binaries /Claude code generation 5 2 /output files /Game of Thrones. What if? 2 hours, 12 chapters /. Video number 3, script xgy /chapter 8.txt. Content. The Raven from Riverrun arrives at Jon's camp on a morning when frost covers the ground like scattered diamonds. T. April 22nd, 2026, 8:25:33. Right. File_path. C:/users /shadow /desktop /compiled binaries /Claude code generation 5 2 /output files /Game of Thrones. What if? 2 hours, 12 characters /. Video number 3, script xgy /chapter 9.txt. Content. The music begins just after the 7th course, when wine flows freely and northern lords relax their guard in the April 22nd, 2026, 8:27:39. Right. File_path. C:/users /shadow /desktop compiled binaries /Claude code generation 4 2 /output files /Game of Thrones. What if? 2 hours, 12 characters /. Video number 3, script xgy /chapter 10.txt. Content. The Raven from Bravos arrives on wings black as midnight, bearing news that chills even the warmest halls of Riv. April 22nd, 2026, 8:30:57. Right. File_path. C:/users /shadow /desktop compiled binaries /Claude code generation 5 2 /output files Game of Thrones. What if? 2 hours, 12 chapters /. Video number 3, script xgy /chapter 11.txt. Down into content. The dragons come with the dawn, their shadows falling across King's Landing like harbingers of ancient prophecy. April 22nd, 2026, 8:32:59. Right. File_path. C:/users /shadow /desktop compiled binaries /Claude code generation var 2 /output files Game of Thrones. What if? 2 hours, 12 chapters /. Video number 3, script xgy /chapter 12.txt. Content. The coronation takes place in the ruins of the Dragon Pit, where the bones of ancient kings once rested in glory.